Sorry.
Continue. Okay. Good evening, everybody. It's 7:02. I'm in chambers along with CAO Pamela Rook and Municipal Coordinator Carla Duarte. Council members and the CAO are on stream. We're coming from a closed session of the meeting, and there is nothing to report out from that. And there has been some amendments to the agenda. We're trying to speed this along, so we'll be very quick, but we're now at the public participation. So that's for those folks that are on the gallery. And if somebody would like to unmute and speak for 2 minutes, you have your opportunity now. So please do so, unmute and come on stream.
Good day, Marek Sretsky. Just have a question on the agenda. New business development at Ocean View Road touches my ground. What does that mean, end of the road? What do we do there?
If I may, Mr. Sretsky, this is a property that we own. Technically, it's called a road end, and the CAO can correct me. It's not a sellable piece of property now. If it was to be sold, it'd be converted into a lot, as we've done in the last 2 in the village in the last 3 years. So it would be converted to a lot, but technically at this time it's called a road end.
So how come it becomes a new business, if I may?
Because it hasn't been discussed before in a way that I'm going to.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll wait for that. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Hi, hang on, I'm just going to get my camera working. This is Chris Clark. My wife Mandy was going to speak, but she is unavailable, unfortunately. So I want to speak very quickly on her behalf. Just wanted to raise the issue of bear awareness. I think by the council's own guidance that in the Keeping Our Bears Alive infographic that was put out earlier this month. We're not doing enough for the bears. Most of the homes in our community don't have bear-proof bins, and I don't think there's a coordinated approach from council to assist residents in meeting this guidance or to ensure enforcement. I think the North Shore Bear Society recorded 13 deaths of bears because of residential garbage, and I believe that there's a male bear that's going to be put down in our community because of this this week. There are programs that have been successfully implemented by other communities to make garbage and recycling more bear safe, and I'd like the council to consider that. I had a read of the current bylaw, and the current bylaw does allow for fines of up to $1,000 for breaching the bylaw. The bylaw is pretty specific on issues around having animal-proof garbage and recycling storage, and not putting garbage and recycling out the night before collection. But I do think there's a bit of a glaring hole in the bylaw, which basically says that for garbage days, the containers don't have to be animal-proof, and that's where most of the garbage is out. And so I was wondering if the council might consider putting together some sort of working group to see if a more complete solution can be found, because I think what we have is a bit of a loophole that allows us to ignore the fact that we want to be bear aware, but don't have the capability to do that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clark. Councillors, any questions? Keeping in mind that Mrs. Clark has got some correspondence on bear-proof cans, and we are talking about Bear Smart later in the agenda as well.
I can bring up what I wanted to discuss later in the agenda. Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Councillor.
I'll keep mine so right as well then.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor. All right, Mr. Clark, unfortunately be at the end of the evening, but we're moving along quickly. So if you need to do something and come back in about an hour and a half, we should be where you need to be.
Okay.
Ruth Simons, your hand is up. You have the floor, ma'am.
Hi, good evening, Council. Couple of things, just a follow up to Mr. Clark there. Lions Bay is an actual Bear Smart community as a result of the work done of the Bear Smart committee that ended several years ago. And that continuity of the village staff engagement in the Bear Smart activities and processes have dropped off with the changes to people on that committee, as well as it moved over more to a wild safe program. So I really support the community committee being formed, and there is lots of good training and support out there. And it is kind of sad to see, what's going on now. The Bear Smart committee I was on that committee with Norma Rogers and Brigitte von Krozik, and there was a lot of training going on in the Lions Bay school so that the children were educating the parents. Secondly, I just wanted to say thank you to the council. I'm with the House Sound Biosphere Region Initiative, and I'm pleased to say that September, we can officially announce our formal designation as a UNESCO House Sound Biosphere Region. So our nomination to UNESCO has been approved. And again, formal announcements can't be made until September, but I think it's good news for House Sound at Cutsum and good news for Lions Bay.
Amazing, Ruth. Thank you so much for all your hard work. That's just unbelievable. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ruth. Mr. Byrne, you've got a couple of minutes. Would you like to address us?
Yes, thank you. So my tree application is up for today, and I was instructed that if I had anything to add to it, that this would be the time to do so. And the only thing that I wanted to add was as a result of the previous council meeting where I saw how one of the tree applications was treated with the intent of the new bylaw or that's being formed around the tree bylaws and how it's being amended and to have a complete moratorium. My application was done before that was actually considered. And so my ask is that I'm not sure what the recommendation is from the tree committee, but if it is approved that it be under the current process and not be held until late August. And the reason being, we have a project that is underway and has been halted. I have no complaints about the halt. The time is the time for the tree committee, but to halt it further because of a bylaw that wasn't in place when we applied would cause undue hardship to the project and the backyard, which is actually completely turned upside down at this point in time, which is functioning according to all the other permits that we've gotten in place. So again, my ask is just that it be considered and be approved under the previous or the current, I guess, until the new bylaw passes regulations, which would just have the arborist validate that the trees in question don't have any nests, and then we'd be able to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Byrne. If you would just hang on for a second, Mr. Byrne. This evening's meeting started at 6 o'clock this morning, and in the open portion before we went to close, I moved the your tree application number 110 at 255 Ocean View Road to follow the bylaws, which if you've got your agenda is number 12, which is the trees, views and landscape bylaw, which is set for 3 readings. We will do 3 readings tonight. And I'm going to recommend, well, I have recommended to council in advance of this that we table your application until the special meeting date, which will be Thursday, 2 days hence. And we'll do 4th reading for the tree bylaw. And then your application will be right following that. It's a 2 agenda council meeting. And the rationale behind it is we should approve the law that's in place first. And then if there is an exception, that we do that second.
So I'm not sure. So the bylaw is not in place today and won't be until minimum Thursday.
The old one is now, but it's a work in progress, and it's going to receive 3 readings for change tonight. So we'll get the 4th and final on Thursday, probably at 7:05, and at 7:10, your application will be considered. And we've heard you quite eloquently that you've got a project that's in place. The application was there before. The changes were contemplated by council. I mean, since I live just around the corner, I see the trees are smallish. I mean, they're not big timber, so it's easy to assess. But I'll leave that for the balance of council. So I didn't want to leave you hanging tonight. So we'll probably, there may be some comment on the actual bylaw, but we will table your application.
Okay.
So if I can ask your patience till Thursday night at around 7:05, you'll get your answer then.
And sorry, what was the rationale for tabling it?
We've got the amended bylaw in place now. And we'd like to have that in place first. The amended new bylaw. And the caveat to that is that within that bylaw, there is an opportunity for exceptions. And that's probably how yours would be considered.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Time for another person in the gallery if you'd like.
Got a question around this. Are the people in the audience? Was there anyone there that's that wants to? I just see people in the audience. I haven't seen them met for a while. I was wondering if they had anything to say.
It's the delegation.
Pardon?
It's the delegation.
Sorry, I can't hear. You're muffled and Neville's
It's
quiet.
the delegation.
Oh, we're delegation. Right. We're moving on the agenda, Pam, is that right? Thank you. All right, so thank you very much to the gallery for participating on the items that were mentioned. Next up is the public delegation.
All right.
Neville.
I was
Councillor-
under the impression there was someone tonight that was wanted to present something in 2 minutes. There wasn't a delegation that I saw on the agenda, but if there's no one in the audience that meets that criteria.
There's a full gallery, actually.
Could you ask the gallery if anyone wants to have a 2-minute presentation, please?
Why would they do that when they're recorded for a 10-minute delegation?
I'm a 2-minute.
You're 2 minutes.
Yes. Where do you want me?
Stand forward. Thank you, Councillor Abbott.
Is here okay?
Yes, right here. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. My name is Marcus Reuter, close to 30-year resident of Stewart Road. 2 years ago this spring, our village engaged in an inspiring act of participatory democracy to consider the question and future of wood burning in our community. The results left no room for doubt. An overwhelming majority of us wish to retain the right to warm ourselves with wood in our homes in keeping with the rural nature of our lifestyle. Tonight, I'm here to present you with a letter signed by 202 residents who are again asking to be exempt from Metro's intrusive bylaw. A bylaw which, in the words of Roger Kwan, Metro's Director of Air Quality, is aimed at air quality problems in, quote, dense urban areas. But we are not urban, and we cannot continue to be treated as such by lawmakers who don't live here and don't understand that we are much more like the communities of Anmore, Belcarra, and our close neighbor Bowen Island. Let me emphasize this. This is not just about wood burning, but this issue has strongly underlined the fact that we should never have been included in the UCB in the first place. We simply cannot allow the metro powers that be, whom we have never elected, to control how we live in our very small community when they clearly are focused on big urban centers. In this year of our 50th anniversary, we are particularly mindful of the reasons our village came to be. More than anything, we love the rural character of our community. It is why we live here. We have been ill-served by a bad decision made in the past, but this council has the chance to make things right before who knows what other bylaws and regulations aimed at the likes of Vancouver and Richmond are forced upon us. So councillors, 2 years ago, you asked us, the residents of this village, to speak on this matter, and we did. We gave you a mandate on this matter, and now we are speaking again. Over 200 of us are asking, as a matter of urgency, that you move us outside the urban containment boundary and ensure that we can continue to warm ourselves with wood, unmolested by this metro bylaw, as befits our rural lifestyle. Now is the time to correct the error that included us inside the UCB boundary in the first place. I urge you respectfully and strongly to act on this matter and get it done. Thank you for your attention. May I present you with the petition?
Thank you very much. Leave it on the table. And
Thank you.
So you've got your petition, is that right?
That is the petition.
And your verbatim that you just read?
I can give you a copy of that as
Can
well.
you do that or electronically send it to me?
I will do that shortly.
Thank you
Yes.
very much for your exceptional presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your attention.
Councillor Abbott, thank you very much for picking that up. I'm looking at the paper agenda. I didn't pick up on this. Thank you very, very much, Councillor Abbott. Which closes our public participation piece and brings us.
Sorry, Mayor, through the chair, I think maybe you can inform the resident that there's an item under Mayor 1B, urban containment boundary. I guess that's relevant.
Certainly, we are addressing urban containment boundary later in the meeting. I'll be happy to send you the link and the timestamp. I've got your email. So, I mean, it'll be probably we'll be talking about around 9:30. So you may have other things you want to do tonight. It's just as easy to listen to the video.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you again very much, Councillor Abbott. Which brings us to the next piece, the public delegation request. And the first one up is Mr. Cox of the Historical Society. And he has a presentation to the Village of Lions Bay to celebrate our 50th anniversary.
Good evening. We're on, hardworking councillors, people from administration. My name is Tony Cox, this is Trudy Duthie, and we're with the Historical Society of Lions Bay. And we'd like to show you tonight our particular contribution to the 50th anniversary of Lions Bay becoming a municipality. Years ago, like 60 odd years ago, Bob Nelson was the original developer of Lions Bay. And it was very hard for him to start selling lots. And this he had to do because without selling of lots for cottages or for permanent homes, the development would never get started. So he came up with a brochure, a very good brochure, listing the pros and cons of moving to Lions Bay. And in that brochure was a picture of water and picture of mountains. And I'm sure this picture helped a lot of people buying a home here in Lions Bay. So without further ado, I'd like Trudy to, we've gone down to Obus several times to get this picture enlarged, digitalized, chosen the proper frame, framed it for you. And I think the village will appreciate this.
Go ahead, because I'm going to take a picture.
Okay, we'll have this. It's not a Rembrandt, but very close.
That's lovely, Tony. Thank you very much for you and your team. It's right.
This is the original. This is the original from 60 odd years ago of how they sold lots in Lions Bay. So we thought it was a very appropriate. And when we're looking back 50 years, to use something which was then used to start the program of Lions Bay, or the village starting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Little bottom, where it says.
Oh, yes. Well, there's a brass back at the bottom, and it reads, presented to council and the village of Lions Bay on January the 2nd, 21, of course, later, by the BCHS, or LBHS, on the 50th anniversary of Lions Bay, incorporated as a village. And we've called the picture Paradise Found. You know about Paradise Lost, so this is Paradise Found. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much to you and your team. It's greatly appreciated, and thank you for all the hard work. It truly is a memorable.
It's a masterpiece.
Well, it's a memorable piece. For those who've been around a very long time, the picture resonates, and I mean the wording to enjoy true leisure living.
There we are.
It's live. Thank you very, very much on behalf of council and the residents of Lions Bay. Thank you.
Did you want a photo?
Do
All
you
together?
want a photo, Sean? The three of us with that picture.
Okay.
Sure.
Might as well bring it into the light a bit.
I think.
Turn the lights on.
Bring it back
Turn the
in.
lights on.
Well, okay.
Turn the lights on.
I'll put this umbrella.
Yeah, you should.
Over here.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. That's good. Thank you.
Very much. Thank you very, very much.
Good. We will talk to you later about where we would like it to sell.
Pardon?
We'll talk to you later about where we'd like it to.
Oh, good. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll put this one out for you.
Thank you.
Mind taking the tabletop, or I can come and back.
No, I'll take it out. Let's wait.
And you take it to the office.
Well, that was just wonderful. There we go. Moving to the next piece. It's Mr. Doherty, and this is on the noise bylaw exemption request. And what I propose is that Mr. Doherty would like to make his presentation. I'll put forward the motion afterwards, and council can discuss it and make a vote on the spot. Mr. Doherty, you got mute and come forward.
Thanks, Mayor, and good evening, Council. And I apologise if it seems like I'm coming from the Witness Protection Program. I've got the light behind me here, so trust me, I am in Lions Bay and I'm easy to find. Thanks very much for hearing me again this year. I have forwarded, time's of the essence, so I have forwarded some written submissions to each on council. I'm happy for those to be tabled and be part of the public record. And I just wanted to say a couple of brief things. The pandemic's been challenging for everyone, but I think, at the store and cafe, 15 odd months ago, it really galvanized us into action. We rather than, just be a place for people to send and collect mail, we've made a real effort to engage the community. In effect, completely turn on its head, I think, the way that the business had approached itself over the past so many years is that, in summer when 20,000 vehicles come up the highway, you sort of keep your head above water by default, and then you hunker down over the winter. That was never going to be a winning solution. And what the pandemic did to us is we realised we had to be first and foremost a great partner to the community of Lions Bay. And then, you're going to get the tourists by default in any event. So you can see some of the things we've done over the past, 15 or 16 months, including, really engaging with all the artisans, from painters, jewelers, people making vegan bars, people selling dog food, to make sure they had a place to sell their wares. The resolution that I'm asking for council to support tonight is, I think, the final extension of that. Is that not everyone, a number of people have amazing decks and amazing patios with fantastic views out, onto Howe Sound, the soon to be registered, UNESCO biosphere region. Not everyone does. And then, given we've all been holed up inside our homes for so long, people want to get out and engage with each other. So the extension of that is the live music, which we've been, thankful to have the exemption granted over the past couple of years. We'd like to do that again this year. That also embraces local musicians as well. It also means that the store and cafe is a gathering place, not just bumping into one another, collecting your mail, in at the post office. So we really want to continue to engage the community, become a great partner. The gold standard for me is Goats on the Roof in Coombs, but some other notable examples at the end of the line, Inland Valley. The Cornerstone Cafe in Pemberton Heights has done amazing, engaging a community in a very closed off part of the world. I think we've done better over the past 15 years, and we want to continue to improve. And I think this will lend itself to our improvement side, seek council support in that regard. And I leave the rest of my time open to any questions if anybody has any.
There we go. Councillors, before I read the motion, any questions for Mr. Doherty?
I have a question, Craig. So I understand that you need to be a little flexible, weather dependent. The number of occurrences this year in total, or the maximum number in a month, or any commitment that there won't be one weekend after the other, anything like that you
Neville, I can guarantee it won't be Granville Street on a Saturday night. You know, one of the things, and actually feeds into a good point which I omitted to raise, we'll probably do 6, no more than 8 over the next 3 months. And what we're going to try and achieve with each of them, it may not be possible on every occasion, is to partner with, you know, one of the local sort of great causes like the Fireys. You know, on August the 3rd, I was sitting down with my cafe manager today to work through the schedule in the event. We do something in any event, with or without, you know, sort of the live music. The live music just adds to, you know, the atmosphere. So as an example, on sort of July the 3rd, if this resolution goes through, we'll have some live music. I've already asked if he could, Mark Coughlin, a local, if he could keep himself free for that in the event that we're good enough to be granted that. And we're going to support the Lions Bay Search and Rescue. So we'll also be looking to continue to reach out to the firemen. They're actively trying to raise all the money all the time, particularly for an outdoor gym. And I'd like to do something with the school pack as well too. So on each and every occasion, this is not just a pure profit generation, it's a partnership and a further engagement with the community. So, but short answer to your question, Neville, is 6 to 8.
Thank you very much. Other councillors, any questions for Mr. Doherty? I'm ready to read the motion and we can discuss again. Why don't I do that? I'm afraid though, Mr. Doherty, I'm modifying it slightly and I think you'll pick up on that when I read it. My view is that before I read this, that we've seen you come before us year over year. This will be the 3rd time in this council's tenure. And I know it occurred several times during Mayor Burr's tenure as mayor too, largely supported by a vast number of the community. And it's based on that I'm putting forward this recommendation. The council grant an exception to noise bylaw number 283, 1998 to allow for live amplified music on the patio at the general store and cafe on weekends and holidays from June 30th, 2021 to September 30th. And this is the change, 2022. That's a 2-year extension between the hours of 12 p.m. and 9 p.m. 12 p.m. and 9 p.m. I'll put forward that motion. I talk about my rationale afterwards. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. I'll lead first. I think it's apparent what Mr. Doherty and his musicians are doing here. Everybody's seen the piece on the support for it. I think when Mr. Doherty come back every year, it really doesn't perform a meaningful function, and I'm happy to give it 2 years. I'll let other councillors weigh in, otherwise I'll call a motion and go.
So are we suggesting then, Ron, that this variance will apply? Typically, Mr. Doherty only comes and has to do this in the summer. We're now granting a variance through the winter as well.
This is a question for Mr. Doherty.
I don't propose to. It's pretty miserable out there on the patio in the midst of winter, you know, and I hadn't turned my mind to that. But no, I don't propose to do that. I think we'd have a pretty meek audience.
I thought that I heard the dates of June 30th to September 30th specifically.
Actually, Councillor Abbott's correct. That also includes the winter and spring.
Yes, September next year. It's got another whole 2 seasons in the middle.
I could modify it for the same periods in 2022 as well.
And that's all I'd be asking for.
Good. I'll make that friendly. If councillors are fine, we'll continue with the discussion, but I will make the friendly amendment to include as well the periods June 30th, 2022 to September 30th, 2022. Thank you, Councillor Abbott, for the pickup. Any other questions?
I don't so much have a question. Maybe it's a bit of a question, but a comment. You know, noise bylaws are always a little bit tricky, and typically there's some element of decibel levels and point of perception measurements that other municipalities have in place to curb any kind of excessive noise. And I'm curious if we shouldn't discuss some kind of noise level that's tolerable, because live amplified music could potentially be quite loud if it's amplified. So I wonder if it, as a courtesy to the neighbors, it would be worth having that conversation. I'm not sure if the bylaw allows for decibel numbers or anything like that, but I don't think we should just carte blanche ignore the fact that amplified music could potentially get a little unbearable if it isn't, you know, within reason. I know that's the reason is sort of objective language. So that's really the comment that I have.
Mr. Doherty, if I could lead you, you've pretty much been a guitar player or a singer or both with a small amplifier. I contemplate making any changes.
No, and I think to Norm's question, it's a good one. As I said, if we rolled Metallica out on a Saturday afternoon, then we're going to get pretty short shrift if we come back in subsequent years. And you know, I'm sure that if something dramatic happened, then you know, council on its own volition could convene itself and revoke any permission or exemption we're given. So we're mindful of that. We appreciate it's an indulgence. You know, it's a courtesy, not a right. So we'll be mindful of that.
The other comment that I would make, or to add to that, is that we don't have equipment that can measure the decibel levels of any sound. So even where you do have equipment that measures the decibel level of sound, you still have to establish what is reasonable in setting the parameters for those sounds. And so it becomes a question of reasonableness, whether you do it with a meter or whether you do it based upon what's reasonable in the circumstances when it happens. So it's always going to come down to that question. And as I say, we don't have the equipment to enforce the bylaw on the basis of decibel levels.
Any other questions? Are you satisfied with that, Councillor Barmier?
It's just a point of discussion. I think that, you know, the message I think is that we just need to be reasonable. If we don't have any measurable parameters, that's all I'm suggesting. I think bringing some vibrancy into the area, into the community in general, is a great idea. I support it wholeheartedly. I think what's happening down at the store is awesome. You know, especially as a younger resident, I really appreciate it. And to me, it's an asset. So I support everything that's happening there. I just, you know, recognize that, you know, at the fringes, when things can get out of control, you might upset people inadvertently and not realize you're doing it. And it becomes tricky in that kind of situation. I just want us to be mindful of that.
There you go. And so I'll leave the coordinator to correct me, but so far I've suggested a friendly amendment to the one that I've read. And so I'm going to presume that I'll put forward that friendly amendment and ask that Councillor Barmier second it. I'll take that as a yes, thank you. And that we've had enough discussion. I will call the motion. All those in favor of the amended recommendation, please confirm by saying yes. Those opposed, no, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Go, Mr. Doherty, you've gone away with more than you asked for.
I appreciate that. Thank you for everybody's time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Doherty. Good luck. Take care. Next up is item number 7, which is review and approval of the minutes of the prior meeting. And I'll put forward the motion that the regular meeting minutes of May 25th be approved as circulated. I'll put that forward. Can I have a hand for a second? Thank you. Any discussion, any changes, any amendments? I have none. Councillors, any changes? Councillor Abbott?
Yeah, I do. Just 1 second. Well, actually, you know what? Most of them come up in the following part of the topics in the meeting, so they're more matters arising. I will have one on matters arising, and the rest of them we'll deal with in follow-up sections in the agenda.
Okay, I've got a couple of matters arising too. All right, other councillors, any changes, additions, deletions, amendments? There being none.
I think we were going to add a brief report on the EV under council reports. I'm not sure if that's been added yet.
We're doing the minutes from last meeting, Councillor.
Oh, pardon me. Right.
So I've got you down. Thank you.
Apologies.
You got me, but it's too early. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I'll call a motion. All those in favor, please confirm by saying yes. Those opposed, no.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Passed. Business arising. Councillor Abbott, I've got 3, but we'll let you go first.
So, as I said, I've only really got one that isn't going to be dealt with later in either the section we'll be talking about the porta potties or the tree bylaw. So I'll keep all of those to where it's appropriate in the meeting, even though they did come out of this matters arising. The one I've got that is not necessarily going to be dealt with later is on page 18. Halfway down the page, there's some discussion about porta potties and so on, which we'll pick up later. And then there's one comment that says at least 2 signs on the way up to Lions Bay Trail past the school advising of the rest area ahead. I assume we're not going to use the words rest area on the signs because that might be a very mixed message for a hiker. I assume we're going to use something a little more direct. Washroom if we have to be Canadian, toilet if we have to be more English.
Let's leave that to the CAO to noodle what he's ordered or contemplating changing between now and when we raise this in about another 15 minutes. Are you finished?
Sorry, go ahead.
Are you finished, Councillor Abbott?
The rest of them I'll bring up in the follow-up sections.
Thank you very much. CAO, I know we're going to be talking about washrooms shortly, so we'll save our powder for that. That's okay. I think the business arising that I had were 3 items. The first one was on page 22, and it was maybe I didn't see it. The CAC via Councillor Cunliffe wanted something about the anti-idling bylaw. Did that appear in the village update?
Yes.
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 Thank you very much. And I think also, and this may still be a work in progress, following down later on that page as well, is that I'd request that an item on the subject, which is the block watch, be published in the village update. It may be just a bit too soon. Is that something that's going to happen in the next little bit as the news breaks? I'm turning to staff or to Councillor Abbott.
I was going to actually try to bring something to this meeting, but we're just waiting to get some follow-up from our application and my discussion with village coordinator earlier today. We haven't received anything back or confirmation that they got our check. I will reach out to them tomorrow.
Okay, I think this is community news. So whether it comes to council or then council and then to the community, if we could, I think an article on the village update would be great when you can work it in. Thank you. And the last one, which is remind me of culpa, my recollection was that the police RCMP report had some odd categories. I was supposed to contact the RCMP, but I failed to. I'll have that information for the next meeting. So, Carla, could you put that in the unfinished business, please? Thank you. Any other business arising from the minutes? Otherwise, we'll move on. There being none, unfinished business and the follow-up items. So 207 and 208 were
Oh, sorry, those are blank. They were just flagged last meeting as items that could be considered by council. Councillor Barmeyer, I wasn't sure if you were suggesting that they come back to council for consideration, or if you had other suggestions on those two items.
Carla, can you just point me to the page on the minutes? I don't have it in front of me.
Page 2 of the agenda, bottom.
Yeah, the first was a letter from Bears Matter Consulting regarding a request for a resolution on need for a moratorium on wolf hunting in BC. And the second item was the city of White Rock had made some resolutions on regional model for mobile crisis response car program and proposed changes for RCMP attendance at hospitals. There's been a few municipalities who have put resolutions and letters of support forward, and I think they were just asking for support, and you had mentioned it could be something that could be considered for that council could consider. But
yeah, let's carry that forward, Carla. I haven't looked at it anymore.
Okay, coordinator. Municipal coordinator, could you resend those both to Councillor Barmeyer, and we'll deal with that next time out. Councillor Barmeyer, is that fine? Thank you. Next one is the Sierra Club invitation, and that was referred to the C, and that was completed, so that's a strike. I believe mine to Ms. Montgomery is a strike. I've done that. And I know that Councillor Abbott has responded to Mrs. Hackstrom, Mrs. Nelson, Mrs. Stoddart, Mrs. O'Keefe. So those are strikes as well.
Well, there was actually so Charlie Bradbury was also on the list, but somehow.
And also, yes. Yep. Thank you very much.
And I didn't email a response to my wife.
Thank you.
Acceptable.
Well, save the postage. Okay, there we go. All right, thank you very much, Council. And which concludes that and brings us to item number, which is item B, and that's the Help Cities Lead campaign. And the recommendation from the Climate Action Committee is there. And I'll ask either Councillor Barmeyer or Councillor Cunliffe to read it, and the other one support it, and then do the discussion.
Could you just direct me to the page? I'm scrolling through here on my iPad.
Page 3 of the agenda, top of the page.
Thank you. Okay, I can go ahead and read that. Norm, if you would like to second. From the Climate Action Committee recommendation from May 13th, 2021. The committee recommendation is that the Climate Action Committee recommends to Council that Council supports the Help Cities Lead campaign, and that Council directs staff to provide a letter of endorsement on behalf of Council for the campaign. Further to that, sorry, go ahead, Norman.
I didn't say anything. I'm just listening.
You're a second, Councillor Barmeyer?
Yep.
Thank you. Back to you, Councillor Cunliffe.
Further to that, we have had a couple letters that I just forwarded on table that will provide a template or from staff to directly send. If I forwarded it off to Carla as well as Council and CAO De Jong. So hopefully that is some guidance, and thank you to Ruth Simons for providing that to us.
Thank you very much. Councillors, any questions for our colleagues? Oh, Councillor, sorry, CAO, hand up, or is that a thumb up?
No, it's just a thumbs up.
How often does that happen?
Good news.
That's good news. Boy, other councillors, any questions?
I've got one that maybe the two councillors on the Climate Action Committee can take back. So the way I read this, this request is there's 5 things that they're trying to do. And as I said last time, I was concerned that we commit to something A, we can't do, and then just fail, or B, it's something that makes it, that becomes onerous or impactful on our finances either. The first 3, that immediate timeline ones that they want us to do, I don't think affect us. The one's the regulating greenhouse gas emissions from new builds, mandatory home energy labeling, which I think's coming anyway. The way I'm suspecting the step change in the building bylaw is going to go. And then the third one, this idea of PACE property financing, which is, I find very intriguing, which I'd never heard of before, which basically allows you to leverage your property and get financing to do upgrades, but you don't actually pay for them if you sell the property. The future owner is on the hook for them, or the property becomes liable for the upgrades. I've never heard of that, but it's an interesting concept. The last 2, and granted they do say these might be in the future, is ones where I think it might hurt us. That's greenhouse gas emissions for existing village hall. So before we go there, we better find out how we're going to finance and get rid of our oil burning village hall system. And then benchmarking for village infrastructure and multi-unit residential suites. Both of those will have sort of impacts if we get to that point. So I think the Climate Action Committee needs to keep in mind those last 2, and be aware that they will be impactful on some in the village, if not all of us.
Change typically hurts, Neville.
Yeah, I know, but let's make sure you've got a plan to fix the whole greenhouse gas emissions before we get there and commit to it.
Right. Councillor Bain, any questions?
No, none at this time.
Good. Councillor Cunliffe, you're ready to call a motion?
Sorry, before you do, the 2 items that Ms. Simon sent in is actually, one of them is a completely different recommendation, as well as a report that was written, I guess, on behalf of the Climate Action Committee. So I don't know if council maybe wants to have a look at those prior to making the recommendation on the table. The one that's there before council is simply to send a letter of endorsement for that campaign. However, Ms. Simon's report includes a lot more information on that.
I'll follow the lead of Councillors Cunliffe and Brunner.
So I actually didn't have a chance to look through it thoroughly. I saw that while we had started the meeting already. I just forwarded what I had seen. Sorry, that being said, I think that to endorse the Help Cities Lead initiative is merely to provide a bit more in their arsenal with the province of BC. I don't see how it really needs to hold us up on any particular decision moving forward. It's just merely a letter of support. Norm, do you have anything further to that?
Oh, I agree. I think the motion as it stands is just that. It's a letter of support for the campaign, and we'll work on the details. We're essentially setting ourselves a mandate to go down this path. We haven't worked out the details.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cunliffe, call the motion.
All in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 Thank you. Moving on. Next item is reports, and staff has got this fascinating one, which is on page 41 of your agenda. Speed and traffic data on Mountain Drive. And this is a piece where the information is to be received. So it's speed and traffic data on Mountain Drive be received. I'll put that forward. Can I have a second with a hand? Thank you. And CAO, which are the staff members doing this? Is this the works manager? Yes, it is. Mr. Jaffer.
So essentially, over the 23-day period, we had 9,649 trips past the radar sign in both directions. Average speed was 31 kilometers an hour. The 85th percentile was 39 kilometers per hour, and the maximum speed, likely by one car, was 71 kilometers per hour. 90% of the traffic was traveling below 40 kilometers an hour. And that's essentially the gist of the report.
Thank you very much. Councillors, any questions? And that the data is the data?
I'll go with one question. So on the graph on page 43.
Yep.
It shows that we had no one travel over 55, yet we know we had people traveling at 56, 59, and 71. So I think you might want to look at how that spreadsheet feeds into the graph, because something's not working.
Yeah, Councillor Abbott, that's the scale. So the scale goes from 0 to 200, which is the first graduation. And yes, there are vehicles that are in the 60, 65, 70, 75 range, but they're too small to register on the graph. But point taken for future graphs, I'll modify that scale.
Thank you. So you could just show the blip and a number asterisk beside it or something. Works Manager, thank you. Colleagues, any other?
Yeah, I've got a question. I mean, we're gathering data, but is there anything we're going to be doing with this? Any recommendation? I fear that they're all going to come up and tell you every time we do this, it's going to tell us it's in the 85th percentile. And I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen on the next one on the other side of the mountain. It goes up towards Sunset, but the circumstances there are very different. So I just, what's the feeling with staff? We get collecting this data. What are we trying to do? I know there's also a element of trying to encourage good behavior, hence the smiley faces. And on that point, now we've spoken about this, but you pretty much have to be speeding to trigger a smiley face on the other side of the mountain. If you go in, because it only triggers when you're just below the speed limit, I think we should be moving that down. You were going to take an action to do that. Can maybe you just let us know where we're at with that?
Yeah,
I guess there's two questions there.
I did ask staff to look into that. Their priority has been to install the paid parking signage right now, so I'm not sure where they're at. I'll follow up with them in the morning. And then in terms of the data that's being presented, essentially what we're doing is we're just showing you what's there. It's entirely up to council to decide whether or not a change in the speed limit in those areas is warranted. The only thing I would caution is that the 85th percentile shows what most people are doing, and if we change that, studies show that that's not going to impact the 85th percentile. What we'd need to do is follow up with enforcement to change that behavior. That's simply it. It's essentially up to council to decide.
Also bear in mind, though, that we don't have the ability to enforce moving traffic violations. Our bylaw officers are not empowered to do that. That would have to be the RCMP. So enforcement of traffic violations for speed must be done by the RCMP.
I mean, we could put up signage at corners and blind spots that tell people to go slower. Most of it is intuitive. Crash data from ICBC shows that there aren't very many crashes in Lions Bay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
When we get the data from the next one on the other side of the mountain, I think we need to revisit this conversation a little differently, because that is one of those dangerous blind bends with a huge hedge. And I'd hate to think that we just 85th, 6th percentile, as long as you're only going 40 kilometers around.
Councillor Abbott, I agree, Councillor Abbott. I think the three pieces of geography are very different from just above the PRV in front of the school, straight rocket shots. It's pretty clear cut. Mountain Drive, same thing. I think in your neck of the woods, very different thing. I'm looking forward to the data and I'd be supportive of what you're suggesting. There you go. To my colleagues, then we've got the report we're being asked to receive. I put forward that, although it's with a caveat, and that this is information that the community would like to see. I was wondering if the works manager might put a small article referring to the data in the village update this week. Thank you. All those in favor of receiving a report, please confirm by saying yes. Those opposed say no.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Approved. And we are next on to the annual report, which is on page 45 of your package, and the staff recommendation is pursuant to section 99 of the community charter. Council has considered the annual report prepared under section 98 of the community charter and any oral and written submissions and questions from the public. I'll put that forward. Can I have a hand for a second? Thank you very much. And Ms. Duarte, you're sharing this piece? Or CFO? I'm just looking at the report. Just looking at the report.
It just, as it says, it's a requirement of the community charter that we do an annual report. It has been made available to the public for the last 2 weeks. And we didn't receive any feedback, I believe. So basically, the council considers it such that the recommendation says, and then it gets published on the website.
There you go. There's a little twerk in the room. Did you mention how many people did write in other than the council team?
I'm just saying no one did.
No one. Thank you very much. Councillors, any questions? This has been kicking with us for a month now. Time for last questions. We'll call a motion and then we'll go to the next piece. There being none. Oh, Councillor Abbott, you're unmuted.
I was going to say mine were asked and answered. So,
okay. Thank you. I'll call a motion. All those in favor of receiving the report, please confirm. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Good work and a nice tombstone behind you now. Which brings us up next to the 2020 Statement of Financial Information. And again, the recommendation is that Council approve the 2020 Statement of Financial Information for submission to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, and that the 2020 Statement of Financial Information be made available for public inspection. I'll put forward that. Can I have a hand for a second, please? Thank you very much. CFO, are you're on this one too?
Yes, so this is the annual SOFI, as it's called, another requirement of the community charter. We have to submit it to the ministry by June 30th and post it on our website as well by June 30th. So I think I would ask if there are any questions about any of the information. And basically after it's approved by council, then myself and the mayor sign it and then it's submitted to the ministry.
Thank you.
This is just a really, it's probably a clerical question more than anything, Pam, but my impression was this was covered on the previous motion because there's no separate cover page introducing this as a separate motion. Did I misunderstand that?
It's a separate report from the annual report.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
So
this was on page 115. Yeah, so basically the motion is that council approve the 2020 Statement of Financial Information for submission to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, and that the 2020 Statement of Financial Information be made available for public inspection.
Okay. I see it now. I was on the wrong page. Thanks, Pam.
Okay.
Questions?
I would just like to make a comment if I could. Thanks to the CFO for beating the deadline on this one. It's such an improvement that we had from a couple of terms back that Ron and I were sitting in.
Yes, thank you very much. Any other questions, colleagues? Councillor.
Yeah, I've got a bit of an observation, I guess. If you look on page 1, sorry, 1 112, and this is not news to any of us. Our taxation, infrastructure levy, utility fees all get increased year on year by 3%. And it steadily compounds. And I just feel uncomfortable with this acceptance that we're always just going to keep increasing by 3% or whatever the number is, and sometimes it's more, without trying to find ways to turn that around and flatten that curve, if you must use a COVID type analogy, and try get our taxation numbers down to what we really think they are. And when I look on page 107, I look at where Lions Bay sits in the pack on tax rate per $1,000 of assessed value. And yes, we're in the middle. But then I look at the two municipalities that we are similar to, Anmore and Belcarra. One's 30% less than us, and the other one's 25% less than us. And then there's a big jump as it goes up to, the Lions Bays, North Vangs, North Van, kind of West Vans of the world are all kind of in the same batch. And I do wish that somehow this council and staff could take a more critical look at how we spend our money and maybe benchmark ourselves against those municipalities. What do they do that we're not doing? I've driven through there, the roads look great, the roads look fine. So I think we need to take this as a challenge, and I think we need to look at this more critically and where we're spending all our money.
If you don't mind, Councillor Abbott, I could give you a counterpoint on this one, since I'm extremely familiar with these neighborhoods, if I can, with Belcarra. In my personal view, Belcarra is cusping on financial trouble. They're at their loan maximum. There's no improvements in sight, and they refuse to do a taxation increase. The previous mayor, quite frankly, resigned because his council wouldn't support increases. Using that as a top example, Anmore, my favorite, did a 10% infrastructure levy 12 years ago and continued up to it until last year this year for the first time. So it's not really a good comparison, because if we were to do that, we'd be even higher. Vancouver is probably writing off a fair amount of construction. Burnaby for sure, West Vancouver for sure, Richmond for sure, North Vancouver for sure, North Vancouver for sure. Lions Bay, not so much. Surrey, understand from Mr. McCallum that they're doing north of $2 billion in building permits this year. So they're getting funded out of all this stuff here. And then we get into the others. So to say that, we're not really doing stuff, we're not a good comparison to any of these. That would be my counterpoint.
I'd appreciate seeing some more data and giving an opinion on that. I guess we have two observations, both of them based somewhat anecdotally and looking at very little information, but I wouldn't mind seeing some more detail on that.
I can perhaps add a comment that perhaps ties Councillor Abbott's observations with Mayor McLaughlin's observations, and that is that, if we're going to be looking for ways in which we can flatten the curve for taxation, Mayor McLaughlin just noted a few reasons why those other communities are able to keep their tax rates low, and has to do with ways in which we find other ways to help finance things, and that involves potentially development, construction, densification to the modest degree that Lions Bayers want to see any densification and still maintain the rural or semi-rural character that we have. So there are options out there, and certainly those are things that Council's going to need to look at over the rest of the term and find the way forward. Be good topics of conversation going forward. But yeah, there's ways to do it. It's just looking at how and to the extent you can do it in a place that has the constraints that Lions Bay has.
Thank you very much, CAO.
Yeah, Peter, if I could just add
one last one. Sorry,
Peter, I've
Councillor Abbott, just a second. Let Councillor Abbott finish. Please. No, go
I
ahead.
just want to, I think Peter,
Councillor
sorry.
Norman. I say let Councillor Barmeyer talk first.
No, thanks, Neville. I just wanted to, make a, I like the idea of more data, Neville. I think that's a really good idea. I also think Peter makes a very valid point about, income portfolios for different municipalities, and it might be worth, picking a few key municipalities and understanding where their money comes from compared to us, because we have no revenue streams other than taxation. So it would be nice to see how some of these communities that have a lower assessed tax rate raise money, and maybe how some of the especially big cities, like we know they make money doing parking, selling all kinds of stuff, and we just don't have that. We don't have those tools, so it might be good as an education piece.
Yeah, I just my counter argument to CEO just said was he seemed to be implying that there may be other opportunities we should look at, development opportunities that would help. But then if you look at the ones on the top of the list, those are all the ones that pay the most. Those are all the people that have had development over the years. Maple Ridge, Pit Meadows, New West, these are all places that are expanding, so it's not working for them. So yeah, there's lots, and we are not looking at enough data to understand this. But I certainly think we should be looking at, those municipalities, what's their staff ratio per resident population, or whatever matrix you want to use. What there's a lot of stuff we could look at. I certainly would like to see a more in-depth look at it.
Good. Thank you very much for your recommendation. Two things. One, that discussion comes at the budget period and not before. This is the annual report. We're not actually asking staff to do anything, and that's not something I'm going to put forward. And I presume nobody else is at this point. I think relative to the exchange here, I think that observing what other communities do is always worthwhile, but you have to separate the big and the small. And I think I'm quite familiar, and I gave you the quick editorial on some of the stuff. I think when you see my mayor's message this week, you'll see some of the other things where we're trying to move the needle in the short term. And I think where the CAO was talking is probably into the next elected council. I think we're at the point of calling a motion, which I will. All those in favor of receiving a report, actually, no, approve the report. All those please confirm by saying yes. Those who oppose, no.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Carried. Which brings us to the report on page 123 of the agenda package. And that is on the portable toilet and kiosk feedback and action. And the recommendation from staff is that staff be directed to complete a camouflage wrap for the upper Bayview PRV kiosk only. I'll put that forward, but I know there's going to be other questions asked on different topics in this heading. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you. Who's leading this discussion from the staff?
That would be me, Your Worship.
Okay.
So taking into account the feedback that, the on-table correspondence that was circulated to council and will be put up on the website. On the PRVs, 9 people or 9 residents out of 75 responded to the PRV question. 6 were a no for wrapping mountain and the PRV at the school. 1 was yes to a camouflage wrap, and 2 were yes, but reaching out to the Arts Council to come up with an artistic theme for that wrap. So based on that feedback, that's what put forward the resolution that we only proceed with the Upper Bayview PRV, not the mountain and the Bayview at the school PRV. As far as the toilets are concerned, 4 out of 9 residents responded in writing. But we also know that Mrs. Bradshaw on Mountain Drive is also opposed. All 4 are opposed, and 5 including Mrs. Bradshaw. So no recommendation on putting a toilet on Mountain Drive.
Thank you very much. Councillors, questions? And this, let's go beyond the wrap on this one too.
Sorry, I don't know what you mean going beyond the wrap.
Anything to do with portable toilets? Signage?
Well, I just had one question about the wrap. And some of the emails that we've been getting, the numbers thrown around are 30,000 or 10,000 each or 30,000 each. So what is the number that we're talking about?
So the estimate we received was from a graphic company in North Vancouver. They were provided the design drawings for the PRV that had all the dimensions. And it's approximately 10,000 a PRV. So 30 if we decide to do all three, or 10 if we decide to do one. I will caveat that by saying that when we do the PRV, we will go out to a competitive bid that will include many suppliers, not just that one company from North Van. I will also add that staff will respond to each of the residents that wrote in on both topics and let them know what happens.
Great.
Councillor Abbott?
Yeah, I've got a comment on the wraps, and we can do that first and then talk about the porta potties. So when I in the previous meeting, I said, when I told people what the cost might be, the opinion changed, and we went out and told the people around the mountain and the school one what the costs were, and we got an overwhelming response of, no, it's too much money, I wouldn't approve it. What we didn't do is go back to Upper Bayview and ask them if their opinion would change now that they knew the cost.
Councillor Abbott, the residents on Upper Bayview that responded were told the costs. It was in the feedback email that was sent to them, each of them. So the first line of the email that was sent to them read that the cost of doing 3 wraps is going to be 30,000. Okay. And one of the options offered was that no wraps were done.
Thanks, I wasn't aware of that. Okay.
Let's move this around. Councillor Barmayer, then Councillor Cunliffe. Any questions on this?
I don't have any questions, but I don't want the recommendation to read that we're going to complete this regardless of price. I'd like us to go out for costing so we know what we're signing up for. You know, if it's $2,500, fine. If it's 10 grand, I'm not going to support it. So I'd like to know the price first. 10 grand seems insane to me for a little bit of art on a box.
It will come back to us, to the best of my knowledge, Public Works Manager.
It's not written that way, Ron. The motion's not written that way. So I'd like to make sure the language reflects that. Right now, it's directed to complete, and I don't want to support that language.
Public Works Manager?
Yeah, we can come back to council with the prices from the bid process.
How about if we amended the word, staff be directed to proceed, and then it comes back because of the limit of the.
Can I suggest that we amend it by, after the word complete, we remove the word and insert the words and RFP for. So once we get back the proposals, we would then come back to council with a recommendation.
There you go. Councillor Barbier, will you accept it as a friendly amendment?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah, thanks.
Good. I will second that friendly amendment. All in favor of the amendment, please confirm by saying yes.
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 Thank you. Any further discussion for the Works Manager?
Are we discussing the porta potties now? Or do you want to deal
let's clean that. Let's do this, Councillor Abbott. I agree. You're up.
So I did we have one porta potty at the moment. I did go have a look over the weekend and see what it was like, but it was a rainy weekend and it was in decent shape yesterday. But we do know from last year that will not be the case in the first really warm weekend of summer, and it certainly will not be the case over the first long weekend, because last year that porta potty got into an awful state. So I think we should be making the provision to put a second one there. We know we needed it last year. So let's put a second porta potty on Sunset Drive. It's planned to do it now, is what I would like to see, rather than what it now reads is we're going to go with one with a Friday and a Monday cleaning.
Yeah.
And last time I think we tried to clean it over the long weekend and didn't leave it for 3 days as well. And I'd like to see that in here as well.
There you go. Councillor Abbott, I'm going to stop you here, turn to the CAO. I think we talked about this before. Maybe you're doing it, maybe not. What can you tell us?
I thought we had decided that this is what we're doing. We're increasing the service to twice a week, before the weekend, after the weekend. When we did that last year, it was later in the year, like in August or September, and seemed to do the trick. It makes more sense than getting a second toilet. Don't think we need that. I think we'll put the extra toilet down at the school. Just waiting for confirmation of consent for that. And so I think that the twice weekly is going to address the issue. If we find that it doesn't, then we can deal with it. But I think that's going to be the solution.
What does it cost to have a second one, Peter? Is it 250 or $300 a month, something to that effect? And my concern is if one gets messed up by one person, at least there's an option. You have some redundancy. And it just takes one bad actor who's unlikely to, that person unlikely to use both porta potties, but it just takes one bad actor and then you have nothing. And we'd certainly, there were times last year when people would not have gone into those porta potties. And I really think having the second one is just gives it some redundancy, and it's money well spent. It's not a lot of money.
Okay. Councillor Abbott, thank you. I'm going to ask the other three councillors to weigh in. Basically, we're focused. We've got one that's coming for the school area. Councillor Abbott's request is to double up on Sunset Drive. Councillor Bain and Barmera and Cunliffe, if you could give us your views.
I'm happy with what I'm hearing, including Councillor Abbott's suggestion. It makes good sense to me.
Thank you very much. Councillor Barmera.
I appreciate Council Abbott's efforts in reaching out to the community and getting a real feel for what's being asked. So I support what's being proposed.
Thank you very much, Councillor Barmera. Councillor Cunliffe.
Yeah, I support the 2 cleanings a week. I would perhaps like to see 3. I also would recommend 2 porta potties at both sites, as per Councillor Abbott's argument. If one is not so appealing, the other one may be, and therefore if 2 people do need to use the facilities at the same time, you don't have one that is going to get impatient and decide to just carry on with their hike and go elsewhere. For the minimal amount of money that I feel it is, I think it would be a benefit just to provide ample washrooms for everybody. 2 per spot just seems reasonable to me.
There you go. Councillor Abbott, back to you. Were you at 2 at both spots, or 2 at Sunset and 1 at the park, at the parking area?
I was specifically talking about Sunset, but I think it makes sense for both spots because the parking area one will become popular. And to Councillor Cunliffe's point, when I went up there on Saturday, and it wasn't a particular busy day, I wanted to go up and see what it looked like in the porta potty, and I couldn't because there was 4 people lined up outside it.
Okay.
And that was not a busy day. So yeah, I think the second one in both locations.
Thank you very much. So
for a couple of $100 a month. Okay,
so Councillor Cunliffe, thank you for thinking what you heard and making it into what is heard. All right, CAO, I think you've heard the council that we'd like 2 and 2. Do you need anything or just general direction as we've given you now?
No, it's good.
Thank you very much. I think, last thing, let's call it a related topic on this one. And Councillor Abbott brought it up, and I'll bring it up on his behalf again, was signage pointing to the porta potties and what you had contemplated they would look like, what they say, and where would they be?
Signage at the school lot where you start down the trail would not say anything like rest area ahead would say, you need to use the facilities, turn around and use them before you leave. Because if you're going down that trail, you're going to be going along Centennial and then up Harrison, then you're going to go up Upper Harrison, and you're going to go right past, i.e. you won't be going past the porta potties at Sunset Trailhead. You'll bypass that. So people who are in the vicinity of the school lot would need to use that before they leave. So signage would say something like that. Go before you go.
That's exactly what I was thinking, Peter.
Thank you very much, Councillor Abbott.
Peter, the signage in question, I think, was the one we were going to put something on Mountain where people park, so that they do know to go as far as the trailhead before they find a need to relieve themselves, be them in my garden or anyone else.
All right, CAO, I think you've heard lots on this topic then, and so to my council, I think we've covered the issues about the wrap, the porta potties and directional signage. Is there anything else that's causally related on any of those three topics that we want? I don't think it's brought up anywhere else in the agenda. So this is the time.
We get a quick updates on the rest of the parking enforcement and the app, which we thought was going to be in place by now, if I recall.
Let's draw let's CAO. It's
yep.
Bring it in.
Sure. So as of today, the Flowbird app went live with the latitude, longitude coordinates, and staff, we just received the signs. Staff has been out in the field yesterday and today installing the new signage. It'll take probably a full week. Messaging on our website reflects the new lay of the land. And I will be also reaching out to other avenues to make people aware that the game has changed a little bit in Lions Bay, and that they'd be well advised to download the app before they come and be ready and understand what the situation now involves and where they can park and where they can't and how they do it.
Suffice to say, we're still on baby steps at that point on this.
Yeah, we're just literally implementing right now.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you draw a topic for the next agenda with any further update on that? Bugs, glitches, successes?
Yeah.
Thank you. And Council, any questions? That was a good pickup, Councillor Abbott. Again, back on any related topic here before we move on.
Yeah, just engaging the community and just letting those know that if there is a parking, one of these signs on their block, that it does not deplete the permit parking, that you are still able to park there with a permit, as opposed to the beach parking lots.
Yeah, and there will be messaging to that effect in this week's village update. We weren't exactly sure when we were going to get the signage, be able to implement, and the timing for the Flowbird going live. So it's all just happening now. But yeah, we will be putting out that messaging that people with resident parking permits, if their property displayed in their windshield, can park where it says pay parking without having to pay.
Excellent, thank you.
Just to be devil's advocate on this one, CAO, I know we're a well-read village update. Is this something that a mail drop might be more effective so that people got things in hand and actually see it versus hearsay?
Something we could consider. We are looking at mail drop for a couple of other items, so we might be able to add something regarding that as well. Let me work with that.
I'll leave it with you, but I think it's a good idea. That's I guess people read what's in their hand, And sometimes, and our update is pretty captivating, so it may scroll past like I did on the other item I mentioned on the island. There we go. Okay, thank you. We moved on past this.
Sorry, Ron, just one final comment on that and what Councillor Cundall. I think this is a very important message, and we certainly need to get it right. Could council see this press release or messaging that's going out? Could we get a review of that before it goes out and see if we've got some comments?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, done. Thank you. All right, that closes a wide bunch of topics on this matter. Thank you very much. And the next one I have, which I mentioned when we opened the meeting, was the 10A5, which is the Music Together at Wade Park. And the recommendation is that council authorizes use of Wade Park for the Music Together program to Tanya Cosgrave each Thursday from 8:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. between June 24th, 21 to August 5, 2021, as per Lions Bay Parks Regulation Bylaw number 448, 2012. I'll put forward that motion. Do you have a hand for a second? Thank you. Who staff is doing this? Municipal coordinator, this is you. Could you speak up?
Yeah, we received word from Tanya regarding the Music Together program to take place on those dates. And our bylaw states that no person shall sell, exchange, barter, or expose or display for sale any goods, offer any service, or carry on any commercial undertaking whatsoever in a park, etc., etc. And so just looking for authorization from council so she could hold the Music Together program at Wade Park.
All right. I put forward the motion. We have a second. Any discussion? Any questions for staff? Okay, there being none. All just looking up, call a motion. All those in favor, please.
One quick question. Did we talk about any kind of sanitation at that park? Like, is that part of the proposal?
Sanitation, yeah, well, that would be up to the organizer to ensure that they follow COVID-19 protocols as per the health order, and we do communicate that to anyone wanting to use a facility or a park.
Okay.
Okay.
So there's no, other than us approving the noise element of this, there's no ask from the village. There's no rental coming in, or there's nothing else to be considered here.
No.
I'm sure you understand your question.
Is this a revenue opportunity? Is that it?
Well, sorry, maybe I missed this event. This is a private event, right? It's not part of, is it meant to be part of the 50th anniversary or?
Sorry, I can clarify, Neville, it's a private music group that you attend with your essentially toddlers, anywhere from 0 to 5. It's less than an hour, so sanitation really is not a huge concern. Most people will be there, showing up for about 45 to 50 minutes. I'm sure that the group snack element has been tampered down because of COVID. So it actually provides probably a safer environment in order to conduct the class. So I think it's pretty straightforward.
This is a class that's been going on for years, and it's normally held in the hall. She rents the hall throughout the year, and I think for the summer, she just wanted to offer some sessions in Wade Park. I believe weather permitting.
Okay. So the village is not asking anything, and she's not asking anything.
Correct.
Here we go. Okay. Any further questions? I'll call a motion. Being none, I will call a motion. All those in favor, please confirm by saying yes. Those opposed, no.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Carried. Next item is two reports from the mayor. The first one is on the urban containment boundary, and I will forward this to our speaker tonight when I've got it. This has been before us for a couple of months now, and I had reason to speak with CAO Jerry Dobrovolny on a different matter the other day, but I specifically brought this up and I substantially gave him the quick background. He was involved with us in supporting us in getting a 12-year exemption on the wood burning devices versus other communities that have 5 to conform. And I used his good guidance to kind of lay out where I thought the community was, not dissimilar to along the lines by our presenter tonight, and some educational pieces and some COVID lapses and a whole bunch of things. And where this morphed to was that the CAO offered to come to us himself before our summer break, so I to be one of the next 2 meetings. And I've talked to CEO DeJong, and he's also reached out to the CAO for Metro. So I believe, and I'll let Peter close on this matter, is that the CAO and Sean Gallagher would both be coming forward to us. My piece with Mr. Dobrovolny, and I said, you know, if you're coming here to it's a pleasant situation and it's all okay. I said, that's probably not the kind of reception you're going to get. And he said he's been barbecued by a lot of great councils in Metro Vancouver. So he's up to the challenge and he's hopeful to give us some guidance and some definitive answers to the questions we're asking. I don't have anything more to add to that other than that we expect him here before our summer break. Excuse me. The next item I have is VeriSmart.
Sorry, Ron.
Yeah.
Can you be clear what he's coming to discuss? Is he coming to discuss the wood burning issue or the urban containment boundary issue, which as I've said before, I think they're two equally important, but not necessarily the same issue.
I think we're melding the two, Councillor Abbott. I mean, we've got the top person, and I'll defer to CEO DeJong to answer on that one.
So I spoke with Jerry today, and they were looking at their dates, and I told them what our next 2 dates are in July for council meeting, and himself and or the general manager of regional planning, Heather McNell, and possibly Sean Galloway. We'll come to one of those meetings. Get back to me on that. We discussed issues around urban containment boundary, designation as urban versus rural. What lies at the crux of the matter. The history of the matter, what's contained in terms of policies related to both designations in the current Metro 2040, whether any changes of impact are coming with respect to Metro 2050, and sort of what's the big picture look like in terms of urban versus rural? What does it mean? What effect does it have on Lions Bay's ability to make its own decisions, its own planning decisions, all of those kinds of things that are pretty big picture things that are going to require, I think, an extensive conversation with the community, the kind of conversation that we'll be having in the not too distant future with respect to an OCP update. These are big picture things. What's the future of Lions Bay 20 years down the road? Does it matter whether it's designated urban or rural, whether it's inside the urban containment boundary or outside? What does that mean at the crux of the matter? You don't want to end up in a place, for example, where you've opted to go with a rural designation, and because of that, Metro's regional growth strategies policies are quite restrictive with respect to what you can and can't do under that designation. So it's something that needs to be approached with caution. It needs to be approached with a big picture lens, and it needs a lot of community consultation. It should not, as Councillor Abbott pointed out, become a one issue item. It's not wood burning. I would like to point out, I'll use this opportunity right now, point out that Bowen Island, even though they're outside the UCB right now, is not allowed to burn. They are covered by the restriction, as are all Metro Vancouver municipalities and jurisdictions that restrict wood burning between May 15th and September 15th, if those are the correct dates, unless you're off the grid, as well as being outside the UCB. But most places on Bowen are not off the grid, and so their exemptions are few and far between. So just being outside the UCB is not the be all end all in terms of being exempt from wood burning in June, if we have cold dates in June. It may be that more work needs to be done in terms of a consultation and lobbying with other Metro communities about having some exemptions for, you know, if the temperature drops below 15 degrees in June, give people a break, let them turn on their fireplaces and burn some wood. Things like that are different items that can be discussed in terms of the current parameters. I don't think we're going to get them to revoke the bylaw, but there's a lot of different deep issues that have a lot of implications for the long term, and it's good to have that discussion and to commence that discussion and to get some perspectives from the management staff at Metro about some of the pros and cons and what lies at the heart of those policies. And so they're going to come and we can have that discussion and begin those conversations. I think ultimately it's something that's got to be a discussion for the wider community about what does the future look like and what does Lions Bay want to be going forward. So lots to talk about. It's not going to be a quick turnaround on something like this, and it's something that needs to be approached with caution and clarity and a lot more information than what we have right now.
Thank you very much, CAO. I'm going to go back to Councillor Abbott, but my discussion with CAO Dr. Volney was also some support for tweaking around the issues of January or a very cold May as well. So I think that it's not yes, no, in out wood stove or not wood stove, and forget about exemptions because I want to burn anyhow. So I think it's a much bigger issue for council. Their top people are coming and we'll receive them and we'll spend as much time as we need with them. Councillor Abbott, I'm going to go to you and I'm going to ask everybody else so we can conclude this matter. Councillor Abbott, you've got the floor.
Okay, thank you. So I didn't quite catch the exact number, but we've got a petition today signed by 200 residents. So that's a pretty impressive number. And we all know, in Lions Bay, small community, if you get 200 people to sign a petition, can't remember when last we heard that kind of number. But anyway, so yes, it is important, and it's important to all residents, and we absolutely need to take the time and get it right. It's not a discussion we've never had before, of course, because we've had this in the previous OCP. But my ask, and my main ask is, and by the way, you mentioned Bowen Island. I was speaking to one of the councillors in Bowen Island last week, and they were completely surprised by the fact that they were they couldn't burn their wood stoves. They didn't realize that, and I think there are other communities. I believe in Anmore, no one even knows they're not allowed to. They just keep burning. But getting away from the wood stove thing again, which I keep trying to do. can we get something that is an agenda of the topic matters in advance, a copy of the presentation, and can we publish it so people can look at it in advance and be informed, so we don't come get it the day before the meeting as we always do. Bowen had their 2050 rollouts on, oh, it would have been last night, I guess. They had the presentation like 2 weeks in advance. So I'm sure we can do it. We asked for it last time and it never happened. We got it the day before. So Peter, can we get an agenda of the subject matters of what we're going to talk about, a copy of the presentation if there's going to be one, and some of the background information, so we and residents can come with a better understanding of what's going to be discussed.
There you go. Thank you very much, Councillor Abbott. I think on behalf of all council, I'm going to go back to the CEO, our CAO, and actually make that a conditional. I think it's something that Councillor Abbott's absolutely correct. Too late, too consuming. The community may want to weigh in too, either electronically or other. So I know that the CAO Dr. Volney is up to it. So I think if on our behalf, CEO DeJong, can you ensure that the information is out well before they come?
I'm going to suggest that it's probably going to be July 27th then.
That'd be fine. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'll move on to the next piece, which is I've called it the general.
I would just like to weigh in there as well. I think we absolutely need the information beforehand. I'd like to see a Lions-based centric presentation. The last time I presented, it was actually, I was embarrassed for them. They were so ill prepared. It was like they just pulled data off of some sort of spreadsheet and applied it to Lions Bay. It was completely non-applicable, and it was a waste of our time. It was a waste of their time. So I would like to see something really, truly tangible from them for our community.
Thank you very much, Councillor Califf. All right, CAO, John, I think you've got the sentiments of council. We'll move on to the next piece, which is my item on Bear Smart. I've raised the general category, so let's just go with what we know to be the facts. Bears are back. We're a Bear Smart community. There's discussion whether the new villagers know what that means or not, and whether the old villagers respect it or not. I think the emails that I get are all in favor of the bears, their children, and we're sharing the forest with them. They're just part of our being. The piece that has come forward is that off from our presenter, Mr. Clark, earlier through his wife, there's bear-proof cans. There needs to be some education on that. There was a Bear Smart committee. There is notionally a committee now, but it's just to retain the Bear Smart status. It's not active. And this week we've had the conservation officer make a visit to us and drop a bear can off on Bayview. And I don't believe I've been advised of that from them, or the CAO has either. We don't want a poor result. I guess where I'm going with this is let's look at what we want to do here as a council. And my piece here is that the biggest one is a garbage out the night before. I mean, this is just simply not acceptable, period. I went to our own Bear Smart site. I was confused whether the fine for it was $320 or CAO DeJong thought it might be a higher number. I'm not sure if you looked at it. I'm fine with it staying at the number at 320 if that's what it is. But where I think we should go, and I did mention this to the CAO earlier this afternoon, is that it's not really in our ethos to phone in about neighbors or complain about neighbors, be non-specific about addresses, be non-specific about who's doing it, but they're always out there kind of thing. We have the bylaw officers, and I'm thinking that for one Friday every 2 weeks, the simple thing would be to simply extend their shift and not warn, but ticket the offenders and, continually ticket them. And quite frankly, would also give us some data because I really don't know how many people are doing this. And if the answer is maybe 2 in a village of 500 homes or 3, that's pretty insignificant. And we can do things in a different way. I'm not proposing we start Bear Smart Community Committee again. I'm suggesting that we use the BEOs for enforcement and ticket to show proof of our concern about enforcement. And if that's not good enough, then we'll go to higher steps and higher fines. So I'll leave that out to my colleagues. I think I'd like to give this about 20 minutes to discuss where we as a group would like to go and have staff weigh in too. CEO, I'll ask the councillors to, confirm or make their suggestions and then let you make your point if that's okay. Councillors?
Yeah. Yeah, I actually, an observation last week, it wasn't the garbage that seemed problematic. I had actually dropped the kids at school and was home by, I actually made a trip to the transfer station. So it was probably about 10 a.m. or just before 10 a.m. I was home, brought up all the cans, and the green waste still hadn't been picked up. So if we're saying it's okay to put your green waste out by 5:30 or 6 a.m. and it's sitting out there until 10 a.m. and it's still not being picked up, that seems more problematic than actual garbage. So if we could maybe discuss that with the contractor and ensure that green waste is picked up sooner than later, I think that could take care of some of the problem. It's not going to help out with anything the night before, but that was just a recent observation.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kellogg. Do you have another observation before I go to Works Manager Jaffer?
No.
Thank you very much, Works Manager.
So Waste Control has a typical route that they follow, and it takes them from 7 a.m., which is their start time, to just after noon to finish the entire village. That's both for garbage and green waste.
So to Councillor Kellogg's point, that
if we wanted it picked up earlier, they would have to have 2 trucks running the village, and that's not in the contract. It's something we could look at for the new waste contract, but it's not in the current contract.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to go in a different order. Councillor Bormeier, any comments?
I guess more of a question, Peter, or anyone in staff talking to the conservation officer about this particular trap and what's going to happen to the bear, or did they just act on their own volition and we really have no communication with them?
I haven't spoken with the conservation officer. I think I did read something, I don't have it in front of me, referencing that at this point, that the outlook for the bear was probably not going to be a good one, and that it would be a much better chance of successful relocation if people would report bear activity sooner rather than later. I think there was a sense from what I read of the conservation officer's comments that people aren't calling in bear activity when they should be, like right away, just waiting too long. Perhaps I haven't delved into it, so I don't know, but I did read something like that.
Thanks, Peter.
Councillor Bain.
Yeah, I can't really add to what's been said already. I'm supportive of prevention rather than seeing the outcome for the bears, which can be avoidable.
Thank you very much. Councillor Abbott.
A couple of things of what's just been said. I believe the fine's $1,000. We already have a bylaw that says what kind of bear-proof bins that you need to use. there was a discussion earlier in the meeting about maybe the village should coordinate a program. We did that 10 years ago. I still have my bin. So yes, do it again, but we have already done that. We've got a bulk buy, and a bunch of us got bins somewhere around 10 years ago, airproof bins. So those are a couple of things from that side point of view. On one of the things I touched on, and they start at 7 and finish by 12 a couple of weeks back, and maybe that's the week Jamie was referring to. They didn't do that, and I believe they had a mechanical breakdown or something. And that was the weekend. It was a day when there was notice bear activity. So yes, we have the means to prevent these things by good behaviors and doing things properly. And you know, mechanical breakdown, well, maybe we need another way, something else to get on top of it, and just not sorry, the truck broke down. I also sorry, I lost my train of thought. There was a few things that were suggested by a few people there. Oh yeah, the time in the morning. So I think our bylaw says you put it out at 7, not at 5, as was suggested by someone earlier. So yeah, we need to go out. We have the bylaws, we have the rules, and I think if we do those rules, we can get back to being a true bear smart community and not a dormant one. And maybe someone doesn't want to fire up the Bear Smart community committee or something similar. There's certainly some residents that are passionate and want to do things about this, and I think we should support them. And I think yeah, it's very disappointing. The other question I've got, and I did try to phone the bylaw officer myself. Can't get it. I left a voicemail for him, never phoned me back. But my question for him was going to be, so did you find the source of the attractant, and has something been done about it? And do they actually do that properly? Do they come and investigate and work out where the problem is? Because these bears will just pass through if we don't give them reason to stop. So we need to do that. We need to find out what's the source of the attractant. And get the education going, and at the end of the day, you know, maybe it does take $1,000 fine to get someone's attention.
There you go.
You didn't write the bylaw and pick that number for no reason.
So if I can comment on the fines.
Yep.
The $1,000 is an old number from the bylaw prior to. It's a number that is associated with methodology of enforcement that we no longer use. There's also the Offense Act, which would allow for municipality up to $10,000, but it's a cumbersome process. You have to serve a provincial summons, appear in court. What we do have as a means of ticketing people now is the bylaw notice enforcement bylaw under the Act and regulations. And so what it provides for is, I'll just read them out for you just real quick here. Fail to secure house wildlife attractants, $300. Garbage receptacle encroaching on street, $60. Solid waste out before 5 a.m., $60. Placing for collection inappropriate substance, $60. Storage not wildlife resistant, single family residential, $60. Same thing, multifamily or commercial, $60. Fail to repair the same container, $60. Feeding dangerous wildlife, $300. Storing edible wildlife attractants, $300. Beehives accessible to wildlife, $60. Outdoor fridge or freezer accessible to wildlife, $60. Meat waste in compost, $60. So it's quite a variety of 300 versus 60, and perhaps that needs to be revisited with some increases to some of them and some more logic and consistency with respect to others.
I guess you're reading from the penalties bylaw, Peter, but the garbage recycling bylaw currently still has that $1,000 in it.
I'm reading from our bylaw notice enforcement bylaw and the fines that are applicable under each of the bylaws that we enforce under that bylaw. So the maximum fine is $500 under that bylaw. And it enables us to write a ticket for up to that amount. And it's a much more efficient system of ticketing. The other thing was that I just remembering now reading that the conservation officer noted that there are provincial fines as well, and they'd be happy to remind people about those fines and or lay them where warranted if need be. So there's another avenue for enforcement and getting people to do the right thing. And if they won't do it voluntarily, they can be made to do it with a bit of persuasion.
Okay, thank you very much. I think where I think in a short-term fix here is not dissimilar to our parking, where we actually have the BEOs. Is it possible for them to be on late shift on Thursday when garbage is the next day? I mean, and tickets. I mean, that's the ultimate. It's not a warning; it's an actual fine. It's an enforceable fine.
Yeah, we can do that if council wants to dedicate the resources to do that, then we can come up with those resources, adjust the schedule and add hours where we have to. And just so you know, we did ticket somebody the other day, and the other person was a new resident who got an education piece.
Okay. All right.
So Ron, I mean, I heard one action there to get bylaw enforcement on a Thursday night. Probably wouldn't hurt bylaw enforcement on a Friday morning to make sure that people have got clean stuff out there, clean recycling, because that's another attractant, and it's all written in our recycling and garbage bylaw. It's all there, it tells you what to do. So I certainly think we should do that. Revisiting the bylaw, maybe that needs to come back in another meeting. What other actions are we going to take?
Actually, I'm kind of going where you are, Councillor Abbott. I think that we've given the CAO a lot of direction here, but the immediate thing is council doesn't want this to continue. BEOs are our choice of enforcement. Ticketing is the second piece. And so we should go with that. The ticket amount, it looks from what CEO DeJong said, it's a very wide ranging bunch of stuff. So, I mean, I just looked at our BearSmart thing and CAO, even on our BearSmart literature in our website, I think the number was $320 for leaving stuff out. Is that the number that you have too?
There was one item that was a couple items that were $300.
Okay.
Well, I suggest we all go look at bylaw 455, which is our garbage and recycling bylaw, and certainly the numbers are sorry, they looked higher, but anyway, we need to do something about this. It's pretty upsetting for a lot of people.
I think here's where I would suggest, and I'll seek guidance from the CAO, that the bylaw officers are in effect for next Thursday night for garbage on Friday, and that offenders are ticketed, and that I mean, looking at staff resources and what we've spoken about today, if we could maybe have a brief bear strategy from staff's perspective.
Yeah.
Just for Thursday, Ron?
Am I missing my garbage days? Is it tomorrow or this week?
No, sorry. We're probably going to have a meeting on Thursday when we get through the rest of this agenda. Could we review bylaw 455 on Thursday?
And last week was garbage day. Next not this coming Friday. The following Friday is garbage day.
But
Sorry.
I think green waste is just as much of an attractant.
Green waste, I agree, would be a largest attractant.
Are you able to have a quick look at the bio? Well, we would only be doing we could only do 3 readings on Thursday. Isn't that correct, CIO?
I'm not sure that the bylaw, it depends on what you're looking for, because the methodology for green waste being secured. But I've got to look. I've got to speak with the public works manager, and we need to review what this looks like. And
colleagues, I think we should, as we've said on many topics tonight, we should do it right. But I mean, we're somewhat impeded. We just happen to be having a meeting on Thursday. So I think the request is that the bylaw officers are in effect next Thursday and every second Thursday for the day before garbage. The CAO will review the penalties for them to come back with a recommendation. And I think, and also I guess the bigger staff piece for the next meeting is what are staff's perspective and suggestions to revitalize a greater community of Bear Smart awareness.
Well, yeah, I'll be reviewing bylaw 455 by Thursday, and maybe I'll bring it on table agenda items so we have some discussion on my thoughts, because I think it's pressing and needs to happen. And as Jamie said, it's not just garbage day, dirty recycling, food waste. They're all attractants. I think we need to pay some attention to this.
I know you're working hard, Councillor Abbott. Whenever you get it, even if it's in draft, please circulate it before so we can noodle it too.
please look at bylaw 385 for the fine amounts that are currently applicable to 455.
Okay. CAO, do you need anything? I think you've already said yes to the BEOs for next Thursday.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think we're closed on this topic. We'll go to the next one unless there's any last comments from relative to direction for the CAO. Okay, thank you very much. There being none, we'll move to the next piece. And it was council reports or commentary, and I know Councillor Barmeyer has one. And Councillor Barmeyer, if you want to voice that now.
Yeah, it's just a quick update on the EV charger. We noted at the last meeting that we won't be submitting a grant application for the June 22nd deadline under ZVIP, which is unfortunate. And then we discussed the reasons for that due to scope creep and excessive capital costs. So in an effort to kind of look forward and maybe de-risk the capital efforts, we want to look at the potential for 3-phase at the power pole at the fire hall and understand that a bit better. And staff has a report to that effect that we're going to start reviewing and then potentially take another step further and see if we can evaluate just how much power is available from that from those three-phase transformers, which is really within proximity of the proposed location for the charger.
Thank you very much. CAO, Councillor Abbott.
Question for Councillor Barmer and Norm. Have you had any more thought about the other avenue of the EVs, the option of having 20 standard EV charging stations rather than the fast DC ones? And I initially, when that idea came up, I just didn't see that ever fitting in our village. And then it dawned on me, all these people that are parking on the street that don't necessarily have access to a garage or a driveway. I don't know, maybe there is something there.
Absolutely, yeah. I agree with you, Councillor Abbott, and I've gotten some pricing on single drops for single phase power. You know, that's kind of the question is always, is the power available at the locations? And So I've been starting to do some research to lay the groundwork and bring it up with at the next Climate Action Committee meeting, which is on June 23rd. Unfortunately, I don't think we're in a position still to try and get that application in by the 22nd, even for the 20 charger, the level 2 option, which I think is a reasonable alternative. But I think we need to scope that effort out a bit more and understand where we have accessible power poles. Calvin Grove actually doesn't have cheap access to power. It's all underground. So getting power to the parking lot there is probably a little more expensive. So we'd have to kind of look at the individual locations, sort of do a screening of potential locations throughout the village where there's, parking opportunities and a power supply that's reasonable. So absolutely, I think that's a good plan B. I think the revenue model on the level 2 chargers is not as favorable as it potentially is on the DC chargers, because we get such a heavy subsidy for the upfront capital, and you can charge a lot more per minute for the DC chargers. So I don't want to close any doors, Councillor Abbott, and I think we'll consider those options within the Climate Action Committee. And unfortunately, we'll have to wait for the next round of grants to come around to understand what the application criteria will be and what the funding will be. We're not certain that, we just don't know what the government's going to support for the next round. And the program runs for 4 years, so we have another opportunity. I don't know if they're going to launch another initiative in 6 months from now, or maybe not until March of 2022. So it's not clear, but I appreciate your suggestion.
Councillor, staff, any other, Jamie, your question?
I was just going to say that's brilliant. I'm not an electric car owner. I'm just getting my feet wet, learning how this works from other people I know, but it's something very appealing to being able to drive out here, go on a beautiful hike, let your car charge for a couple hours, and then go home, all the while we're, creating revenue from it. So if you're coming anyway, it seems like a nice alternative and a good option. And within the next 10 years, it's going to be predominantly electric anyway. So yeah, amazing. Thank you, Norm. Thank you, Neville.
Thank you very much. No further questions. We'll move on. And we shall. Next piece is 10E, which is emergency services. There's no report. Item number 11 is resolutions. Item 12 is bylaws, which is the trees and views and landscape that we worked on last time. And the recommendation is that trees, views and landscape bylaw number 393, 2007, amendment bylaw number 603, 2021 be introduced and read a first, second, and third time. And that council set down a special meeting for Thursday, June 17th at 2021 at 7 p.m. to consider adoption of the trees, views, and landscapes bylaw number 393, 2007, amendment bylaw number 603, 2021. I will put that forward as a motion. Can I have a hand for a seconder, please? Thank you. CAO, you're leading this piece. Anything you would like to add before we go to questions?
No, I presume everyone's read it. The bylaw amendment is intended to give effect to the direction that council gave at the last meeting. There are parameters set out within the bylaw in order to provide exceptions, particularly tied to where there is a building permit or other similar process in effect, that council consider whether the exception shall apply. And so just, sorry, 1 second here. So the exceptions, basically no cutting can be carried out between March 26th and August 16th.
and those dates are based on the nesting calendar in the federal government's materials. Unless cutting is required to deal with a hazardous tree, and that's defined in the amending bylaw, or amendments to the definition are provided. The cutting is approved by the council as an exception where the application is connected to a building permit or other process which, if delayed, the council considers would result in hardship to the applicant, and the council may consider the circumstances of the applicant, the scope and location of the application, the timing of the cutting in relation to the nesting calendar attached as Schedule E to the bylaw, and the requirement for a nesting survey by a registered professional biologist. Those are all considerations that council can take into account. And with respect to the nesting calendar, should be noted that there is quite a range. The calendar sets out periods where there is 0 to 5% activity, 6 to 10%, all the way up to 61 to 100%, which is the period that we're in right now. So those are set out clearly in the schedule to the amendment to the bylaw. So it becomes part of the bylaw, and easy for council to reference as one of the considerations they can take into account when they're looking at an application for an exception to the no cutting provision during the nesting period of March 26th to August 16th.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, any questions? I think the CAO's delivered what we asked after our last conversation. I'll open the floor for any questions. I'll randomly choose, and then we'll go to Councillor Abbott. We'll go with you first.
Going with me first, or did you say you were randomly choose?
Well, your hand shot up so quickly. Your hand shot up so fast. I'm respecting that.
Okay. I think we kind of missed the mark on a few finer points, but they're very important, and I think we need to get them right. So I'm going to be suggesting some amendments. First, the definition of a hazardous tree. So the definition of the hazardous tree is how it reads for this entire bylaw, regardless of the season. And I feel it should be a little different in the songbird nesting season. If we're going, because we already put a statement in there, if it qualifies as a hazardous tree, then that's one of the exceptions. And the reason I say that is because the definition of a hazardous tree is if it's determined by the administrator on the advice of either certified arborist or the works manager or the tree committee. I don't think the works manager or the tree committee have the necessary training, qualifications to do that. And I'll use an example that happened a few years ago. When we had a tree permit and the works manager said that the works department had decided the tree was a hazardous tree because it had been topped before and the branches at the top had thickened. I think that's the term that was used, and therefore it needed to be come down. In the case of the songbird nesting season, I don't think anyone's arguing the tree is imminently going to fall, and that's a good enough reason to bypass our intention, which was to stop cutting of trees in the songbird nesting season. So I think if you're going to put that clause in there, then there needs to be a different definition of hazardous tree during the songbird nesting season, and I'd suggest we just take it out, where it's only imminent danger of life safety or property. Because a hazardous tree that is sometime going to lose a branch over time is not one that's good enough reason to bypass what our intention was, which was quite clearly prohibit cutting of trees during the season.
So if I can comment on that while we're on this one. One what it says is that if the tree presents an unacceptable risk, that to me suggests that there is an imminent risk that has to be dealt with. It's unacceptable to let that risk remain for any period of time. It has to be dealt with immediately. If we have a situation where a tree is looking like it's becoming a hazardous tree or is unhealthy, it is something that is on the list of that tree needs to be taken care of, but it's not an imminent risk, as you put it. It has to hit that threshold of being an unacceptable risk. And I don't think it's necessary to use the word imminent. I think it is within the discretionary. You have to have some parameters whereby you can, because you can't anticipate every circumstance. So you have to be able to be in a position to say that in all of the circumstances, what we're looking at is an unacceptable risk. If we wait until the second half of August, the branch that we're talking about could come down and cause damage to the car that normally parks below it, or a person who is below it, whether it's in a park or a street or what have you. It's got to be an unacceptable risk, and we've got to be able to weigh that. You can't define it in every circumstance ahead of time. You got to trust that you're going to have staff that are going to call upon knowledgeable people and are going to make that determination in good faith. If it can be delayed until after August, it'll be delayed. But if it's an unacceptable risk, it needs to be dealt with. And we're talking about to our infrastructure or to the safety of persons, private property, and other trees. So there's limited parameters upon which one can make that determination. And the words were chosen very carefully and with the best intentions and trying to anticipate circumstances under which those kinds of decisions need to be made.
Councillor Abbott, just a second, Councillor Abbott, I really don't want to go wordsmithing through however many questions.
I don't believe this is wordsmithing. It says 3.4.8.1, which goes, you can't cut in the season unless the cutting is required to deal with a hazardous tree. It's all it says. A hazardous tree means someone from the works yard could say, yeah, I think it's dangerous, and Peter can say, yes, it doesn't have to come to council, and it completely overrides with the intent of this bylaw. That's why I think it needs to be more specific that during the songbird nesting season is not the same as the rest of the year as a hazardous tree. And I used the example that was suggested before. These trees that, yes, they have this thickening or whatever, or it's leaning out. We all know the chances are it could fall down in the summer. The chances are it's going to fall down in the winter, in the storm, when it's snowing. There needs to be, I just feel that one, and that particular clause has been used a couple of years ago to cut down a tree that didn't have a tree permit for this very reason. And those particular trees, they've been chopped, and yes, they'd been thickening, but that branch wasn't about to fall, and it should have waited to the end of the songbird nesting season. I think that point, the way it's written, unless you want to make that also have to come to council and make all of these conditional on the registered professional biologist, which is my next point, which is what we were key on. So I think all of these sort of caveats or ways out should only be approved if they come to council first, and all of them should include a commitment to have a registered professional biologist do the work.
So a registered professional biologist is not a person who is qualified to determine the health of a tree.
I'm not talking about the health. I'm not talking about the health of the tree, Peter.
Yes, you are. We're talking about the risk and whether or not the tree is going to come down.
Sorry, can I just back up? Sorry, let me maybe explain a little bit better. I said there was two things that concerned me, and I moved into the second one, at the same time. The first thing that concerns me is the workshop and yourself are not qualified to decide it's a hazardous tree. And the way it reads at the moment, you don't need an arborist. You get to decide. Nye or one of these staff get to decide. That was not the intent. So I think the hazardous tree part should fall under the council, and then we can get to challenge people whether there's an imminent risk to life or limb, and we get to do that. That's the one thing.
We have a, Councillor Abbott, if we have a storm and trees are in precarious situations, we're not going to be waiting 3 weeks for the next council meeting to determine that we need to cut down a tree or a branch before it falls on somebody's house or kills somebody. We need to deal with
the last time you did it, the weather was perfectly good. It was summer and there was no storm. So unless you're going to change it, you've just mitigated the whole attempt of this bylaw and what we asked for.
Right.
Right. We asked for further protection of cutting trees, and you just, by putting that back in, gone back to business as usual. I think it's a simple request.
So it's not business as usual. It's determining when there is an unacceptable risk. And I only make that determination based upon the advice of qualified people. In circumstances whereby it's determined that it's an unacceptable risk. And that means that it has to be dealt with immediately. If it doesn't have to be dealt with immediately, we'll put it off.
The qualified people you've listed are the workshop, the tree committee, and yourself, as well as an arborist. But it doesn't have to have the arborist in it.
I'm not the person who makes a determination, Councillor Abbott. I make that determination based on the advice of the qualified people listed, i.e. certified arborist, works manager, or tree committee. And those are people that maybe have more experience than I do, that's for sure. And one of the works staff has some qualifications over and above regular knowledge of people. So it's not taken lightly, Councillor Abbott. It's when we're dealing with an unacceptable risk. So if you want to add the word imminent danger, I think I could live with imminent danger as well as unacceptable risk, or in determining what an unacceptable risk is if there's an imminent danger. But if there's an imminent danger, i.e. an unacceptable risk, we're going to deal with it whether it's songbird nesting season or not. That would be negligent not to. And we'd be liable if something happened as a result of not doing it because we didn't want to risk losing a nest.
Well, you said you were not going to add the word imminent danger, which is what I was originally asking for. So let's put that in there. My second.
This went on for 20 minutes for imminent danger.
And I suggest that imminent danger does actually seem like good language. If we are looking at something that is like, in my industry, imminent is anywhere from 24 hours to 6 months. So imminent is suggestible. Imminent does mean in the very short term. If Public Works resident or CAO de Jong did feel that something within 24 to 72 hours was going to fall and cause harm to a member of the community and or the public, if we're going to call a special meeting to pass a bylaw on Thursday, we can certainly call a special meeting to discuss the imminent risk of a member of our community due to a tree. I don't think that's an unreasonable ask.
So maybe the better course of action is to simply say that during the songbird nesting season, it's got to be a certified arborist who provides the administrator with the advice that it presents an imminent danger, i.e. an unacceptable risk. So if we want to just limit it to the most qualified person to make that decision, council's in no better position to make the decision than I am. So you're going to be relying upon the information, circumstances at hand. So if it's judged to be or is suspected to be an imminent danger or an unacceptable risk, then we'll get a certified arborist if it's during that period.
I would agree with that.
There you go.
Well, if I could just point out, the concept here is we're talking about the Village of Lions Bay Trees, Views and Landscape bylaw. So we're not talking about general wood cutting. We're talking about tree maintenance and whatnot. So I think the talk about the imminent issue should be, how about in an arborist estimation, the tree would cause serious damage before the end of nesting season. And that's when you need the arborist. Whether it's imminent or what, define it that way.
Councillor Cormier, thank you very much, Councillor Payne.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the comments. I got worried a little bit that we're just paralyzing staff to be able to do anything. We need to allow for some good judgment in certain situations. And, you know, imminent is, we're talking about subjective language here. And I worry a little bit that we're hog tying staff by being too restrictive.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cormier. I'm of the same view that staff is trying to work with us here. And, you know, I, for one, don't look forward to having special council meetings regularly on sundry issues like this. So I think, you know, I did look at the clock on this. It was over 20 minutes on the one point here. And I certainly hope you don't have more than one more.
Okay, well, let's settle on that one. I guess if I read the room, if we add the words imminent danger during the songbird nesting season, as opposed to the other years, whereas imminent danger, and we understand imminent to be, it can't wait till the end of the nesting season, and it includes a recommendation from a registered arborist, which is what Peter suggested, I guess, 5 or 10 minutes ago, and I think what Norm said as well.
Okay, I'll take that as a friendly amendment to the bylaw. I'll put that forward. Will you second it, Councillor Abbott? Councillor Cormier has. Another piece, Councillor Abbott.
The other piece that I'd like to see is, so we got the council, the cutting of approved by council with exception where, and it lists everything. And then right at the end, the requirement for a nesting survey by a registered professional biologist. I think that statement, which is the key of the whole thing, should be right up top in 3.4.8, should be the first thing. You're not going into this process without the support of a registered professional biologist. That's what we discussed, we agreed last time. It's not just one of many conditions, it is the ultimate condition, the main condition. It's
these are not all mandatory conditions. These are all matters that may be considered by council in the course of an application for an exception under this hardship provision. So you can consider any or all of them. You don't have to consider all of them. And I take the example of, with respect to Schedule A, or schedule, whatever the schedule number is, for the nesting calendar, that if we're talking about an exception being requested and the period is in the 0 to 5%, and the circumstances of maybe it's one tree or it's two trees and they're not very big and it's not that difficult to see, maybe council would consider that it doesn't need a registered professional biologist. They might consider that it's fine with a certified arborist. Those are all things that council can consider on that application. That's why the calendar is included, because it lends another context to the whole situation. You need to take all of the circumstances of every application into account when you receive them. This is not prescribing what you have to do, it's prescribing what you may do. And you may do that after looking at all the circumstances, because you have to look at each application separately, individually, and based upon the circumstances at hand when you receive it. So this is giving you the tools to make those decisions.
I think it would be fair and more reasonable to make any applicant that wants to use this clause understand that we are going to expect him to have a survey done by an RP buyer. And as discussed on your numbers in the previous meeting, Peter, if it is just a simple one tree that's easy to get to, it's going to cost him a few $100. But if he wants to try clear his lot under these conditions, it's gonna cost him a hell of a lot, and he shouldn't go there. He should plan in advance. So I think that requirement should be above, and it should, that you have to have that one condition. You need to understand you're going to be asked to do that before you come to council and submit this, not that it might just be part of what we ask you to do. And that's what we said last week. That's what I understood as we wrote the resolution last week. And I think that should be prominent, and it should be right up top with, you know, what you need to bring before you come with your application to council. Understand that you're going to be asked to do this.
Actually, Councillor Abbott, I believe that that was the gold standard that we asked. And if somebody does come forward, they should have the sure hand in front of them versus something that council can say, gee, that's kind of interesting, but really not the best qualified to answer. No.
You might also have somebody who's got a building permit application and they're clear cutting their lot. They don't need council's approval to clear cut their lot, but they need council's approval to take down the last 2 trees that are going to be where the driveway needs to go. In those circumstances,
we can only protect what we can.
And in that circumstance, I think this is where planning comes in. If you're planning on clear cutting your lot and doing construction, we're sending a message here. Plan.
You've got building permits that are in stream right now, Councillor Cunliffe. Those people didn't have an opportunity to plan.
We can grandfather and we can make concessions. This is moving forward. We're setting a new standard. Of course, those that have permit applications in place prior to the new bylaw coming into effect, considerations will be made. But we're setting a standard. This is the standard now moving forward.
There you go. As CAO, I think I'm pretty sure I can read the room here that Councillor Abbott's friendly recommendation is what council's looking for. Do I need to make an amendment on that? Municipal coordinator? No, thank you. Councillor Abbott?
Yeah, there would need to be an amendment to the way this reads right now, if that's what you want to do. If you want to make it such that there will be no exceptions to the general rule unless, firstly, it's a hazardous tree under the amended definition that we talked about, or secondly, this would be the new secondly, instead of 3.4.8.2, the 3.4.8.2 would be that a nesting survey by a registered professional biologist is required. And then you go to 3.4.8.3, which is the current 0.2. And so it would move down to be 0.3. And then it would be the cutting is approved by council. Council considers the following. And you'd have 1, 2, and 3, but you wouldn't have 4 because 4 is the biologist one, and that's already moved up to become the new 3.4.8.2.
Okay, I'll take that as a friendly amendment if you'll second it, Councillor Abbott.
I'll second it.
Second it. All those in favor of the friendly amendment, please confirm by saying yes.
Yes.
Thank you. One more question, Councillor Abbott?
Nope.
There you go. Thank you very much. Councillor Brummer, any questions on this bylaw, third reading? Hammered out?
Yep.
Councillor Bain? Councillor Bain, you're happy? We've hammered it out?
Happy as can be.
Good. Councillor Cunliffe, happy as you can be?
Sorry, on mute. Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Call a motion. All those in favor, please confirm by saying yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. Good, carried. Thank you very much. We now move to the item that we had.
There was also, Ron, there was also in that we were going to agree to have a meeting on Thursday.
That's all part of the motions.
Part of the same motion? Okay, it's taken care of.
Thank you very much. And Carla, please send the invites out for that. Thank you. So now we've moved it to, just a second, which was formerly item 10D, which is the tree application for 255 Ocean View Road. And to confirm, as I said at the opening of the agenda, that I propose to table that so we can follow that when we go to fourth reading on the former bylaw. I'll put forward that motion. Can I have a second, please? I'll take a second. All those in concurrence, please confirm by saying yes. Those opposed, no.
Can we chat about it a little bit before we go for a motion?
Sure, we'll go back to discussion. The purpose being that we would like to have the bylaw approved first. The trees views and landscape views fully confirmed by council, all the conditions met, final reading. And then the first application in would be the one that we've got before us from the speaker that was here earlier. And he seemed quite willing to wait 2 days. So Councillor Barmier, that's the rationale behind it. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, my thoughts are the speaker made a good point. The bylaw as it reads currently is the one we should be enforcing. I do think the hardship in this case is real. Person's clearly undertaken the work already, probably invested a lot of money to get to where they are. So just don't want to cause any undue delays and just want to be aware of that. And we should all be aware of that. I drive by the area, I see the progress, and I'm very aware that it's an active site and active work is happening. I'm not sure if the balance of council has seen the site. So we should be very aware that there's potentially hardship for this particular resident.
Thank you very much. And that pretty much echoes what the speaker spoke about earlier. So just to remind the councillors that when the bylaw will be the first thing up at 7:05 on Thursday, I expect that will pass in about 2 minutes, and then we'll go straight to this. Please ensure you have a chance to look at the pictures, understand what's going on, and this will be the first exception request we're being asked to make.
Can I ask if someone shares privately with me the owner's address so I can just go by and see for myself, although I
255 Ocean.
Okay. Perfect.
255 Ocean View.
Thank you.
I was gonna suggest that everyone does go have a look. I've been there twice myself. I have a different opinion to what Councillor Barmeyer just suggested. I think he's done what he needs to do already to complete his project. But anyway, let's all make sure we're aware and come ready to discuss on Thursday.
Okay, so be ready Thursday. So thank you very much, Councillor Barmeyer. I will call a motion. All those in favor of tabling, please confirm by saying yes.
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 Thank you. Table, good. Which brings us to item 14. And Councillor Barmeyer, I'm aware that it's very late where you are. So I know you want to get on with correspondence list A, which is the one that's in the package, and B, which is the on-table items. So please, sir, I have my on the clock, and let's go to it.
Just give me a second to scroll down.
Mr. Mayor, you missed the fees bylaw amendment.
Oh, fair enough.
The municipal coordinator will resend B to you now. Yes. So you got it? Or did it go earlier today?
No, we're talking about the fees bylaw amendment.
Oh, the second bylaw.
Sorry, so thank you very much.
We're not on correspondence yet.
No, sorry, I was top of the page. Thank you. I apologize. This is item B, and this is fees bylaw 497/2016, amendment bylaw number 606/2021. That's on page 181 of your package, and the recommendation is that fees bylaw number 497/2016, amendment bylaw number 606/2021 be introduced and read a first, second, and third time, and fees bylaw number 497/2016, amendment bylaw number 606/2021 be adopted. I'll put forward that motion. Can I have a second, please? Thank you. Any update from previous motions from staff? Otherwise, quick questions were gone. Staff first.
No, it's just the prices of the flags have gone up, so we need to reflect that in the bylaw.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Abbott.
In the same way as we've done on biodegradable bags, instead of doing this every time the price goes up by $10, a friendly amendment, we make it cost plus GST to round it up to the nearest $10 so that we don't have to visit it over and over.
Does that work for staff? I mean, it's seems fine to me. I'll second that friendly amendment.
Well, you had it. Why don't you do it for the next 2 items as well?
If
Sorry,
you'll,
which items? I don't have it.
okay. Can I do that?
Just one second.
Just a
I
second.
want to see what the items are.
I guess my only concern is I don't know if those historical books are at cost. The flag is at cost, the bags are at cost. I'm not sure how it's been $10 forever. I'm not sure how that price was set. For the Lions-based stickers, they may not actually be at cost.
Well, just do the one that we're currently dealing with then. So that doesn't have to come back 6 months' time to be 120 or 150.
The only reason we suggested that when we came to had quite a few people actually looking in the bylaw to see what the cost was and then calling us. I mean, I do like the idea of cost, but that's why we decided to go with the 110. And we've ordered a supply that will probably last 12 years to get good pricing. So we probably won't have to change.
I just a suggestion to make things simpler. I don't really.
Oh,
have
no,
a
I'm on the fence about it. That's what I'm saying. We actually originally had it at cost and then we went back and forth on it. But for some reason, because it's the 50th anniversary, we're getting quite a few calls that it says at cost, but what is cost? So I'm open to both ways, actually. That was the one where we weren't quite sure.
Let's go the aggressive way.
What's the aggressive way?
Cost plus GST or whatever it was, so we don't see this all the time. Councillor Abbott, you want to repeat that again?
It's just
I
easier
like
for
cost-
somebody the cost if they have it in front of them as opposed to calling the village office, but it doesn't matter. We can do that. We're just wanting to make it easier for people
Okay.
to know what the cost is.
Too much time to discuss it already. If you prefer to do
All
it
right,
that way, I'll
all
take
right.
back my suggestion.
Sorry, I gotta close this quick. So where are we, Carla?
I would suggest to leave it so that it's easy for people to
All right.
reference. But just take comfort in the fact, Councillor Abbott, that we did have major discussion on this.
All right.
We weren't sure either.
All right, let's take it as a victory all around. So as I understand it, then the original motion will stand. You're fine with that? Thank you. So thank you, Councillor Abbott, but no. All right, please, no more questions. I'm going to call a motion. All those in favor, please confirm yes. And those opposed, no. Thank you. Finally.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Councillor Barmeyer, correspondence is yours, item 14.
Okay, so under general correspondence, we have the South Fraser Community Rail Society done a survey along the Fraser corridor, and the majority of communities there support transit. So just for information, the District of Saanich put forward a resolution regarding the Climate Action Revenue Incentive Program, or more commonly referred to as CARROT, essentially requesting a similar program or something be put in its place, and outlining reasons for it. I would argue that we should discuss doing something similar, recognizing that that program did provide incentive for greenhouse gas reduction. So it just leaves a bit of a vacuum for the motivation to do those things. And I think we should go in that direction as well. The next is from MP Wheeler in terms of food waste reduction challenge. It's sort of an innovative grant that's available for people interested in doing that kind of work. I don't think we have that initiative happening here, someone taking that on. It's just for information. The next one is another grant available for free tax clinics. Again, I'm not sure if anyone's taken interest in offering those in the village, but that money apparently is available. So that's for information. The next is the City of Prince George passing 4 resolutions for UBCM. That's for information for us. It doesn't really apply. The next is Arcandola, essentially talking about advocating for maintaining the Handy Dart Transit program in its current state, not reducing service. I really don't know enough about it, but in all cases, I think we should be advocating for more accessibility, not less. That's received for information. The next is MP Wheeler again, Canada Recovery Highway Program. It's another grant out. I think that passed, and this piece of correspondence maybe came in a bit late, They extended the grant application period by 2 days to June 6th, but that's already expired. The next is another letter from C. Peters regarding human trafficking. I think we've seen this a number of times in general correspondence. That's for information. The last is Ministry of Environment, Climate Prep and Adaptation. I'd like to suggest that this piece go to the Climate Action Committee for consideration to see if there's anything for us to do. And the last piece of general correspondence again is fund enabling accessibility. There appears to be anywhere from $1 million available to do fairly large projects. I'm not sure if that's something we want to look at or have considered already. That's also for information. Next is resident correspondence. Bradshaw discussing the porta potties. I think we've closed that conversation. The next piece is Uta Phillips, who just wanted to express thanks for support of the Lions Bay Arts Committee. So that's for information. The next piece is Chris Clark, the public person came into the public early on to talk about Bear Smart rubbish bins, and council should be promoting this idea. Mandy Clark provided useful information in that letter, examples of bins that would be Bear Smart, and I don't know if we can disseminate that a little further, to give people that information so they understand what a Bear Smart bin looks like. So I would suggest that if we can, ask staff to circulate that information somehow. The next piece is
Sorry,
from
Norman, can we just pause on that one? I think there was more of an ask than that. There was a question of, well, there was a suggestion that the village should issue these free to everyone, but that would just increase our tax bill, and nothing's free. But then there was the other suggestion that came out of that was to try do a bulk buy deal like we did previously. And I don't know, as I said, 10 years ago when we got ours, and it was a discount because the village bought, can't remember how many, and we all chipped in. So I don't know, is that something we can put on the?
Yeah, let's bring it up if you want to bring it up under new business under the next meeting, or
might I suggest, councillors, that I think staff is coming back to us on the whole Bear Smart piece.
Yeah.
The next meeting, if we could get them to draw a line on this, and maybe it might be part of the mail out that they're contemplating. Could go in the village updates. So if we can leave it with staff. I'm sure they've got an opinion on stockpiling bear cans, but we'll let that sit until the next meeting if that's fine.
Yep. Circulating the information is free. I just got to start somewhere. Might as well. Okay. So sorry, where was I? Ron O'Dyer. I'm not entirely sure if this has been addressed or not.
I did. I responded to him.
Okay, so both of those, both the parking and the sewer odor, whereas the sewer odor, a new piece that came through.
I can respond back to her on the sewer odor.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. We've got Ms. Ray on the Tunnel Bluff fire concerns. And basically the question is who to ask if there's concerns about increased fire risk because it's a heavily visited hike. I'm not entirely sure how we would provide that information. The next piece is from Gansky with respect to the wood burning bylaw. I'm not sure if there's a general reply coming from the mayor on this piece. But that's for information. And the last piece that I see here on the agenda is at Langford talking about, again, the Tunnel Bluffs Trail, and essentially, concerned about watershed contamination. And we saw some photos at the last meeting that would suggest that people are not only just walking above with close proximity, but also walking in or through. And whether we should be, looking at this a little closer because it is above the intake and it is quite accessible. I don't have on table correspondence in front of me.
If I may, on your behalf, I think the ones that I've got here, I'm looking from Mr. Doherty. This would be the issue about the noise and music issue that we talked about. So Mr. Doherty's on that and supporting it. Mr. Coughlin supporting it. Mr. Wilton is. Mr. Chester, I think it's Ms. Chester. Mr. Moore is. The Cosgraves are. McKay is. San Severino and Thomas are. So those are all support. So they got more than they wanted. I'd suggest those are just received. The next 3 or 4 are 3 PRV wrap feedback. And that's from Cuthbertson, Craig, Gansky, and Nolte. And I think we've made the decision on that. So I think that's received as well. Actually, to the works manager, are we going to put something out in the village update as to what the decision was tonight? I can't remember whether we said yes or no.
We had discussed responding, or myself responding to each of the people who wrote in.
So that's the 4 of them. Thank you very much. And that concludes correspondence. Councillor Bernier. Unless you've got more on the table that I don't know of. Thank you.
Can I just go back to, Ron, could I just go back to the open-ended one? Norm was asking about the wood smoke, Oliver Gansky.
Yeah.
Can I suggest that as well as Marcus,
the presenter?
Yeah, just get informed that it'll be the date when we'll be discussing this, and that more will follow, and let them all know what's happening next, and nothing else.
I'm going to take that as an offer, Councillor Abbott.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So those are the. I'm going to send something to the presenter, but if you on something else, but if you could respond to him with the dates, and that'd be just great too, along with Mr. Gansky. Thank you very much, and that concludes correspondence. New business, and that's, I'll be quick on this. And the 2 pieces I've received, and I'm kind of just plotting us through. We've got 2 more sessions before a summer break, then we're into a quick fall session closing to the year end. I had drawn 2 things that I believe we should be working on. I'm not cherry picking from my own personal view on this one, but I think that I'm looking at where we can maximize the CAO's time. And I think the CAC's been sitting substantially done for some time. And I suggested that if this came to us in July, but I now realize it's a little too soon because I think the discussion on the UBC is more important. So I've asked this CAO, and he's confirmed that this will come back to us just in September at the latest. So that's the prelude to the development permit applications. So we need to get the left shoe going before we move on the right. The second one is the development of the Ocean View road end. And again, on this one, we've been successful in selling our properties with a view to funding our infrastructure deficit. And I'm going to presume that my colleagues concur, but I've asked for a recommendation for the development of our property at Ocean View and Highview into a lot for September. And the aim would be to understand its highest and best use, the consideration of engaging with affected neighbors, and with the ultimate aim of being in a position to list the lot for sale in 2022. Any questions on either of those 2 topics I've raised? I'll presume there is none. Here we go, and then we will move on to, and I think we could just make this to public questions and comments. I still see there's some on the gallery. If you would like to join into the conversation for 2 minutes, please unmute and come forward now.
Yes, thank you, Marek Sretsky. The last topic, I failed to understand what lot are we going to sell. We're unaware of anything. Is there plans, and is there anything for residents to view?
CAO?
There'll be a report and a recommendation that will come forward in September as to what to do and how to move forward.
I think at this point, Mr. Swirecki, all we hold is a topographical survey. We haven't surveyed the lot in any other fashion. So you know exactly what we know.
Sorry, Aaron, I took it a little differently when you said earlier. I thought there was a discussion item coming to council. Now there's going to be a report and a recommendation. That's a bit of a jump.
Just repeating the words of what Mayor McLaughlin just said, that's all.
Maybe I understood it differently. I thought this was a topic that was coming to council for discussion. A report and recommendation sounds like something different. So what is the ask?
So
I mean, we haven't discussed this at council at all, right?
Not much to discuss because we need to report to make the discussion on the information of which we have none.
I'd like to say, I don't know, discussion point with options sounds a little different to a report.
Not wordsmithing for this CAO.
Yeah, I think all I take it as being is a direction to come back with some information. If there's a clear way forward, perhaps it would include a recommendation, but perhaps it's just a request for direction. It's probably the more likely scenario in my mind.
There you go. Thank you.
I would say a recommendation is premature and request for direction is probably better.
Yeah.
Correction. I'll concur with that. Thank you. Let's go back to the gallery. Mr. Swirecki, any more questions on this topic or on another one? I've got another minute here.
No, just a question on this location of the property. Is that available for us or end of the road? It doesn't mean anything. It's a vast land. Where is it?
If I may, it's the slope that is at the intersection of Ocean View Road and Highview Place. If you were to keep going straight up Ocean View Road, you come to a T intersection, as you undoubtedly know. If you kept going straight, you'd come into a forested hillside, and that forested hillside is part of the municipal road right-of-way. So it's municipal land. Question is whether or not it's developable. Some investigations have been conducted, but not very far. So the ask that has been made of me is that I come back with further information, present that information to council, and ask council for further direction as to how to proceed or whether to proceed. I'm sure would be one of the options.
There you go.
Thank you.
So
now I know what it is. The information on agenda was misleading. End of the road is cul-de-sac.
Nothing surreptitious, and it's just a term, that's all. Thank you very much, Mr. Swirecki, and I'll be seeing you on Monday, I believe. And to anybody else in the gallery, we've still got a minute or two if you'd like to come forward. Going. There being none, I will call a motion for adjournment. All those in favor, please confirm by saying yes. Those opposed, no.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and good night, everybody.